it appears to have happened too late for it to actually have made a difference. It kind of invalidates it. So the ancient alien hypothesis tends to be one that supports your preferred beginning of civilization.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica show. We're going to be chatting to Gordon White a little bit later. But first, as always, Graham, sometimes I smirk like an asshole and ruin the intro. Dunlop, how's it going?
Hey, not bad. It's with Gordon White, not to Gordon White. I don't know where you get that English from. To.
Yeah.
That's weird. Somewhere back east, Ontario and east say that.
Really? I kind of thought that like 50 episodes ago, but it's just been Grimerica Talks to so long that it'd be weird to change it. We're 150
No, it's okay
episodes.
in that context. It's just when you said it before. It's like, where are you to? When you ask me where I'm to, it's not where I'm to, it's where I'm at.
That's fucking different than saying we're going to be talking to Gordon White a little bit later. Saying where you to is a newfie thing. I do it as a joke to fuck with you.
I thought you just said that on the intro. We're going to be talking at Gordon White. No, you didn't say it. No? Okay.
Nobody talks like that except backwards newfies.
Okay. Sorry, Newfoundland. I don't know. We might not even have any listeners in Newfoundland. So yeah, what a great chat. Big thanks to Greg Carlwood at the Higherside Chats podcast for kind of setting this up. And he kind of got us in contact with Gordon, and I listened to a couple of his episodes and I was just blown away. So yeah, Gordon and us get into like the immigration of early humans and all kinds of spiritual stuff as well, ancient mysteries and alternative history. It's really fascinating talk.
It is. Yeah. It was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, it was great.
Not to say I wasn't expecting it to be a good chat, but it was like early in the day.
Oh yeah,
jumped right into it right in the beginning and had a good one. Yeah.
So what else is going on there, buddy?
Not too much. You? Oh, I did want to address that. A couple people accused us of advertising squatty potties.
Oh, really? Like, seriously?
Yeah. But
wow,
we're not
advertising. Squatty potty a
potties.
brand? I thought it was like your nickname that you made up for it.
No, I think it's a brand.
It's a brand? Squatty potty, really?
But we get no money if you buy a squatty potty. Otherwise, we would have given you a link. But we don't have one. I just enjoy the product.
We get shit. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with talking about a product.
I should be allowed to tell you guys what products are like. I'm telling you, I was using it again today. It's like, I just sit down and it's like, people are going to think this is a commercial. I just sit down. It's like, the gas just comes out right away. And then.
Yeah, but I find I used your squatty potty once, and I found it weird that you have to hike your, like my legs felt like they're really high up in an awkward position. Like I was rocking back and forth. Like, I don't know.
It takes like a week and a half.
To get used to it, really?
Now I'm used to it. Now I'm good. I pop right in there. Yeah, I go in first. I'll stand. I'll drop my pants right to my ankles.
And then crawl. Because that's the mounting is the hard part in a way.
No, I've already put the stool in position. And I'm standing on it.
Is it supposed to go out a little ways? Maybe I had it too close.
Yeah, you got to slide it right out.
That's what the problem is.
That's just for easy storage. You slide it out, you stand on it. So you stand out, you drop your pants to your ankles, fully unzipped, and down you go. And I found the trick is to
but don't you find that you're far up and then you might fall back on the toilet? Like, how do you hold yourself to bring yourself down?
I can even play with my phone now.
I think they need handlebars for the squatty potty, to lean yourself down.
You just need to be better at life. You just want... That's like, they should just have fucking the shit you bounce off when you walk down the sidewalk so you don't even have to look. That's like fucking bowling with the things in the gutters. You know, those things, they fill them up with water or whatever. You can't throw a gutter ball.
That's not water.
That's the kind of world you want to live in, a world of no gutter balls. That's socialism.
Let's not get political.
That's not. I'm pro Bernie.
You want to get skeptical?
I don't have a jingle for that.
No, I got an email though.
Dan and Graham are going deep.
What's that? Oh,
It's a profound UFO quote of the week.
Okay, so I'll say the UFO quote before we get into Buddy's skeptical email to us.
Is it going to be a UFO quote?
Yeah, I got it here.
Okay.
After about 2 minutes and maybe 1,000 meters from where we first noticed it, a gray/white craft broke out of the water right where the white wave was.
Sounds like a USO.
And it continued to move in the same direction, except this time it was flying in the air. From what I could see, I could not make out any conventional means of propulsion that I know of. No propeller, no rotors, no jet exhaust, and completely silent from where I was. I have no explanation whatsoever. I am Catholic lay minister and a catechist, an educator of faith. I do not lie. George Gregory Mattingen, Catholic lay minister. That's from Tanjung Aru Beach in Kota Kinabalu in Malaysia, October 8th, 2005.
2005?
Yeah, that's a recent one.
He's probably still around.
Yeah, probably.
Huh.
Okay, do you want to get into this email, the good show but email, or do you want to talk about sleep paralysis?
I want to talk about skeptical.
Okay, you want me to read that email?
Let's get you all fired up for the rest of the intro.
I'm not going to get fired up, dude.
Oh, I'll make sure of it.
Okay, so here it is. Good show, but this is from Jason. Thanks for the email, Jason. Hey, guys, I recently...
Jason B?
Yeah, another Jason B.
Not the Jason B?
No, the other one. I recently started listening to your show, and I've been working on my way back through some episodes, and a couple of red flags went up to one of your podcasts on my morning run. I'll keep this short, but no promises. I'll open with full disclosure. I'm the believer's boogeyman, an atheist and a skeptic. I'm not a staunch either. I don't attend meetings or clubs for either. I don't receive appropriate newsletters or group emails for either. In fact, I want to be a believer, but so far, in the face of evidence, and I know how much you hate that word, Graham, it so far has fallen apart. That said, do you want me to address my
the problem with the word evidence? No,
I love the word evidence.
I'm sick of fucking hearing your little rant.
I love the word evidence because there's a shit ton of evidence out there that the scientists won't accept. That doesn't mean there's like solid proof, but there's a shit ton of evidence. Why do you find that so funny?
Continue.
So he says, I was listening to an episode where you and Stanton Friedman we were on with a guest who donated the laptop. That's James Nation. I apologize. Don't have it on me at the moment, and I'm in too much of a hurry to look it up. You read an email from a guy claiming he was in studies related to earth sciences, and that he was calling out the entirety of science on their claims about anthropogenic global climate change. That's AGCC for short, here on out. It kind of reminds me of these stories you hear about kids in college who, after a few classes, suddenly become experts in their field. And if gentleman who wrote it and indeed is in the earth sciences, he can't be doing very well, or he's completely convinced himself he knows better than a whole many more scientists with experience. What's more, it sounded like at least one of you was an AGCC denialist. I use denialist comfortably here, and I'll explain in a moment. My question for you would be...
I'm assuming that's me.
No, I think it's more me.
Oh, perfect.
Well, we're both kind of probably fall into that category, but it shouldn't be a category.
I don't
I'll
want to be
explain
in any
that
fucking
later.
category.
Exactly.
The same as you.
Thanks, buddy. My question for you
I
would
want to
be...
in the next category, over or up.
Here's a good one. My question
Don't
for you...
fucking face palm me.
Pay attention.
I'm paying attention. You have my undivided attention. I'm staring right at you.
My question... Well, you won't shut up. My question for you would be... What about a 96 to 98% consensus among scientists in fields related to climate? So is that not 97, but it's now 96 to 98%? That's interesting. Just cover like 1 or 2% above that old meme of 97%, which has been debunked. Which even Micah Hanks on his podcast, when he started talking about global warming, he didn't want to.
Global warming? Is that a question?
he didn't want to, well, actually, this guy doesn't mention global warming, it's climate change. But Micah didn't address the 97% meme either. Anyways, he continues on here, and 92% consensus for scientists in other fields. Do you find too much to believe? If you believe in a global conspiracy to cover up the facts or to create something that doesn't exist to scare public for whatever reason, then I can't argue that at that moment, because I don't have the time to delve into the thousands of scientists and government bodies all across countries, and several hundred years add up to an impossibility to support a claim like that. I'd certainly be willing to engage in dialogue if you're interested. I always enjoy a good discussion. I'll leave that up to you. Consensus is a collection of data from experiments that is built up into such a robust collection that there appears to be something to it from a scientific point of view. Now, here's where I'm okay with using denialist in this case. While the consensus among scientists that it appears mankind is at least partially responsible for the ongoing climate changes, a large percentile of those scientists will tell you it's not 100% settled science. As you do more experience and move forward in time to collect more data, and truth shifts. This is true with all science. For example, evolution is probably the closest thing to AGCC shares and percentages as far as consensus goes. But even recently, they've dug up evidence that our ancestors may have been surprising attributes we may have had surprising attributes we've never considered. It doesn't change the fundamentals of evolution. It just adds more to our understanding of it. So while scientists are okay with allowing for error, I generally find so-called denialists, like your emailer, absolutely sure it's wrong. With many of these guys, there's no room to budge as far as they're concerned. It's a big conspiracy to do whatever for whomever, and we're all being lied to all the time. So
Make
panic.
Billions of dollars in carbon trade. But
hang on, I'll just finish.
I'm willing to budge. I say maybe we're helping it out.
Helping it out. There's a big difference from causing it.
Yeah. Well, it'll all be over soon anyway.
Okay, let me finish up here. Seriously though, if I pegged you guys wrongly as denialists, then I apologize. But the gentleman who emailed in about it definitely fits the bill and should probably retake his earth science classes or find another degree to pursue. I'm not being a jerk on purpose here. I'm serious. If you want to pursue science but can't follow the science, then it's probably not for you. Also, chemtrails? Come on, guys. I'd love to hear what the something going on behind that might be. That's pretty fringe, even for a lot of paranormal-based podcasts I listen to. To end on a positive note, I hope you feel I was attacking you, but I'd certainly like... I'm not sure if he's supposed to say, I hope you don't feel... But anyways, it doesn't matter either way. But I'd certainly like to hear your views on this if you have the time or the interest. I'm not interested in heated debate, but I do like to discuss. Micah Hanks turned me onto your podcast, and he can vouch for me as a more mild kind of skeptic. Thanks, and keep up the good work. I enjoy the show, even if I mostly disagree. Jason. Thanks, Jason. That was a good email.
Was. So do you want to address your...
What are you doing? Do I want to what?
Address. Do you want to start?
Sure. First of all, the 97%, I don't know if that... I think that's been a meme propagated by the media. And I've seen people debunking it, that the numbers from the 97%...
No, I want to start at the end. ...is
ridiculous. Like, it's 64 people claimed out of that 11,944 people survey. 64 people said it explicitly endorses and quantifies anthropogenic global warming. Now, he's talking about climate change, so maybe that is the difference between global warming and climate change. But either way, the numbers have been a meme, and I believe they've been debunked. That's part of it. And it's just disgusting to me how the media just keeps propagating this 97%. When actually, out of 12,000, almost 12,000 people, almost 8,000 of them had no position at all.
I wanted to hear more about your chemtrails.
Okay, here's the other part of this. Okay, whether it's chemtrails or not, our insurance company here is paying people to cloud seed the clouds up there above Calgary so that it doesn't hail.
Yes.
And that's going on all over the place. Geoengineering.
Yeah.
Cloud seeding, weather modification. Like China, it's been proven that they've been doing it. And they've been writing papers on geoengineering for fucking decades. So don't tell me that that doesn't have an impact on climate. And that's obviously a human impact, but that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about, I'm sure they're talking about carbon-based impact, not people flying around spraying clouds with shit. Or cloud busting. Kate Bush wrote a song about cloud busting in the 80s. That's probably based on reality. Have you heard that? Have you seen the video for Kate Bush's song?
From cloud seeding to cloud busting so quickly. Like that. Bow, bow.
Oh, it's probably the same thing. It's like cloud seeding is
real.
So is cloud busting.
Ish.
People want to deny this. That's fine. But there's shit going on. The chemtrails.
You can't put denying cloud bursting in the same category as
denying anthropogenic climate change. No. People are cloud seeding up there.
I'm not talking about climate change. I'm talking about chemtrails.
There's planes that are spraying shit in the air, and I'm not talking about it being like the chemtrail. Let's call it geoengineering for what it is. I'm not saying they're dumbing down the population by releasing all these fucking metals and boron and whatever else, or fluoride, whatever. All I'm saying is there's videos of planes spraying shit in the sky, and I've seen chemtrails that are, let's say geoengineering, let's say persistent contrails that have lasted all day long. Don't tell me that it's just a contrail that's created a cloud and lasted all day long. I don't know. I don't think that's science. But I mean, you hear the scientists talk about this. Kate Bush's video showed it. No. Hey, what's the difference between cloud seeding and cloud bursting? Cloud busting, I should say.
Are you talking about like Ingo Swann cloud busting?
It doesn't matter.
Is your mind?
That
Is that
too.
what you're talking about?
No, there's also devices that are used.
What kind of devices? What kind of devices? Like an airplane or a laser beam? What are you doing? Why aren't you answering me?
Look at that, like that. There's Kate Bush's thing right there. Can you believe it?
No, it's not on the TV.
It's coming up right
Who's
here.
Kate Bush?
She's a great singer from the 80s. So that's like the machine I'm talking about right there. That cloud busting machine.
It says it's a fucking song.
It's just part of the video.
Well, where's the part of the machine?
Oh, this whole fucking Wikipedia is about this
fucking song, you idiot. I don't even know if that machine is affiliated. Is cloud busting a real thing? That's what you're typing into Google. Is that more about the song? Let's move on.
Okay.
You ruined the segment. You had to bring cloud bursting into it. You had him. You had him, Graham, and you blew it.
I'm not done with this, man.
You're done. Are you still?
Another one of Reich's inventions, of course, was the Cloudbuster, the fantastical rain-making machine that features in Kate Bush's video. We pick up the story of the shoot. Speaking of Keith,
But what does it do? How does it work?
Like that. So tell me what the difference between cloud seeding and cloud busting is, okay? She talked about this from a book. She was making this video based on, let's just say, it could have been based on a myth of cloud busting. Now in 2016, we're cloud seeding.
What's the difference?
Yeah. You're breaking up the cloud to make it rain instead of hail. You're probably busting the cloud to a certain extent.
No, you're not. You're weighing down the hail so it falls to earth when it's smaller. That's all you're doing.
Either way, you're modifying the weather.
You're making
and that's happening all over the world.
You're making smaller hail. And cloud bursting So instead of the insurance companies hiring planes to seed the clouds, they should hire people to sit around the outskirts of the city and burst any menacing looking clouds that come in with their minds. Well, is that the suggestion? No,
it's okay.
Okay.
So then how about the 31,000 scientists that are actually signing the petition, disagreeing with the global warming project?
I actually heard that was a myth.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I've heard a few things that say it's real. So 9,000 of them with PhDs?
Yeah, I heard, I got it right here. Climate myth, over 31,000 of
Yeah, that's saying that
no evidence has ever been offered to support the first statement. Oh, I don't know. It's fucking...
But that's my point. How do you know what to believe? How can I be so dogmatic either way with the fucking amount of disinformation that's out there and the amount of real stuff that we know is going on?
I'm a denier.
Are you?
Yeah. Fucking bullshit.
No, are you really?
Pretty much.
Hey, you know what I should say? We go back and listen to... we had a few episodes there. Don Easterbrook he was pretty good about the what is it?
AMGCFD. Yeah, Easterbrook was a good one.
Yeah. And Randall Carlson talks about it a bit too. Oh, you know what? The other thing I want to mention.
Ben Davidson.
Ben Davidson, yeah. This is what bugs me the most about it, though, actually.
This here is it. This is it. This is what bugs you the most.
Yep. Is most of the time frame that they're using is from 1820, right? 1820 till now. When they look at the Greenland samples, right? Going back from the Ice Age. Look at the fucking temperature fluctuations over the last 11, 12,000 years. It's ridiculous.
Way the fuck colder.
So if this is true, we're colder than we were in the medieval warm period. So how can you look at this last little blip on our radar, 1820, and say that you've got it all figured out and that we're warming, or that actually that we're causing the climate change? What about this climate change? Back and forth, way colder, way warmer, back and forth over the last 12,000 years. Doesn't this put it in perspective for you?
Looks nice.
What's the end? Oh, there's global warming at the end. Really?
That's a shame. Makes me want to go skiing.
This is what, to me, puts it into perspective. Can't we look back 20,000, 10,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago? No, they want to go back to 1820 when, we were getting all industrial and blowing carbon into the air and say that what's warming now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it is contributing, but I don't think it's the main cause.
No, absolutely not.
Are we both deniers then, if we're on the fence?
Yeah, I'm not really so much even on the fence. I think it's
hogwash.
I think I think there's plenty of reasons not to pollute the shit out of the atmosphere. But I don't think warming up the world is one of them. I still just think it's too minute of a number.
Mm-mm. Yeah, the parts per million number and shit, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to. I recycle.
There should just be more fucking plants.
I recycle and I love the environment. I'm not saying that we should destroy anything.
Recycling is fucking takes more energy to recycle shit than it does to
throw in the ocean or
just
whatever.
Make new shit.
Yeah, but it's not all about that. It's about reusing the crap from before.
But the amount of energy. Yeah, that's what they say is if it's reduce or reuse, recycle is supposed to be a last resort.
Well, recycling is kind of reusing.
No, it's not.
I don't think they're taking
the energy to pick it up, take it, crush it down, refine it, and turn it into shit.
Yeah, but isn't there a point when you should just stop making shit to begin with? Like, even if it's less energy to make it? Like, are we just going to just continue replacing everything? Infinity? For infinitum?
Yeah. At least until I retire. I got fucking bills to pay.
Yeah, so you recycle it, don't you? Do you compost yourself?
I put my compost in a green bin and put it out on the road every 2 weeks.
Do you guys have a community compost?
They come pick it up.
Do you get like fresh
I think they sell
earth?
it. No, they take it to the fucking landfill, and the landfill sells it to the fucking...
To the farms?
To the place that sells it, and then I buy it.
Back?
In the spring to put
for
in my
your garden? No,
No,
that doesn't take a lot of energy to transport that dirt all over the place.
They do all the work.
You can just do a little homemade, home-based compost.
But still too busy with the kids. You gotta maintain it. Otherwise, it just turns into a fucking gross gong show that I don't want to be a part of.
Yeah.
Got any synchros?
No, but I got a little comment from about my email from Michael in Vancouver about the nightmare documentary and sleep paralysis. So we got a comment on our YouTube channel here from AB4N1SG.
Nice.
He says sleep paralysis is an OBE. You can't move because your soul is disconnected from your body, but still sitting in the same place. You can see entities because you're viewing the world with your third eye. Next time you have sleep paralysis, ignore any entities surrounding you. They are parasites that feed of fear. Instead of focusing on them, concentrate on trying to float free of your body. I used to be scared of sleep paralysis, but now I look forward to it. Astral travel is the shit.
Word up.
Oh, that's a great one.
Absolutely.
So we got an email too from a couple that donated to the show. I'm going to send them a t-shirt. They said, I've been listening to you guys for about a year now, so decided it was about time I stumped up for a donation. I love the show. You guys have a great dynamic, a great selection of guests. Even the more woo ones are often hilarious, at least. And RPJ, that's Red Pill Junkie, is a fantastic part-time team member. You need someone sensible to keep you guys on track. My wife and I even started singing Ramblin' Graham whenever we come across an odd coincidence. It gets us some odd looks when we're walking down the street, but whatever. So, they're going to send him a Don't Shoot Sasquatch to spread the Grimerica word over in the UK. And they subscribed as well. Thank you for the subscription. Says, anyways, keep up the great work and I'll try to donate more in the future. And I've recently put a 5-star rating on iTunes.
He actually just donated $5.
Thanks. What?
He donated the one donation and then he donated $5 instead of signing up for the subscription.
Oh, okay.
Just so he knows.
Okay.
But
just
thanks
so he
a bunch.
knows. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for trying.
He'll get her.
I love all the UK. We got a lot of UK listeners and they like to comment.
It's probably because we get we're seen to be big in the UK.
Yeah.
Record, if you haven't listened for a year and you haven't donated.
You know, it could be we've had a lot of UK listeners. I mean, the UK guests as well recently. Actually, Gordon is UK, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he doesn't live in the UK. Oh, yeah, he does. That's why we had to do it. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So check out grimerica.ca/support. Look at all the options there. Donate, get a shirt, get some magnets. Support the show.
Yeah, we don't have any ads and we don't plan on it. No sponsors or portals or nothing like that.
Paywalls.
So it's all listener supported. And we have expenses, right? So it's all help from you guys. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, $1 a show is all we ask. This is number 156.
There you go.
So you can square up and then sign up for $5 a month. We'll call it even. What else can we do? We can review the show.
Yeah, I was going to say sign up for the newsletter. You can spam Graham, GRAHAM at Grimerica.com.
Yes, you can. You can sign people up for the newsletter, and you can tell your friends about this motherfucker. I think that's about it, eh? It's a long chat. It's like 2 hours.
Yeah, This is a great chat with Gordon. Thanks for coming on, Gordon, and thanks to Greg for hooking us up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll put a link to Greg's podcast, THC, in the show notes.
Thanks to Jason B for getting Graham all fired up.
Thanks for the good email. I like it.
All right, guys, enjoy the chat with Gordon White, and we'll pick you up in the outro, I guess.
All right, today from across the pond, all the way across the pond, we have Gordon White here. He's got a new book out. It's called Starships, A Prehistory of the Spirits. And he's the one behind runesoup.com, which is quite the fascinating website. It's all full of podcasts and blogs about practical sorcery, entheogens, synchronicities, UFOs, alternative history, all kinds of stuff we talk about here. So there's lots to chat about. We'll definitely hit on your new book there as much as we can, because it's full of great shit that we've talked about here, and it's deep. I learned a ton of stuff while reading it just recently. So welcome to the show, Gordon.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm a bit nervous for this one for some reason. I've just been like devouring your stuff over the last little while. It's mind blowing, really. The book, I just devoured it, and it's like a combination of all the stuff we've been learning about recently, but you seem to go deeper than others, and I seem to learn like a little bit out of almost every like section of your book. So I just want to thank you for that.
Well, that's really, really encouraging to hear. I mean, these things take a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine how you put all that shit together. Like, I mean, especially the chapter. We can just get into your book right now, or what's new. I mean, it just came out, right?
Yes, absolutely. It came out on Monday, and the book launch in London isn't until February 13th.
Nice. And people can get it here in North America?
Yeah, absolutely. From scarletimprint.com, it's published by an independent publisher who does very good and noble things, like not sell on Amazon and only sells through independent bookstores and that kind of thing. So you can go and ask at your independent bookstore, or you can go to scarletimprint.com.
Nice. I'll put that all in the show notes as well.
Brilliant.
So what about the genesis of the book then? Like, it seems to me like this has to be a culmination of years worth of work, unless you just, you pushed it all through in the last couple of years, but...
Well, no, it's definitely something that I've been thinking on and sort of been obsessed with and had as a passion for about 20 years. In many ways, I can blame, as most people can who kind of work in this field, in many ways I can blame Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods as kind of the beginning spot. So whilst it was my first book and the information and the sort of scientific research in it is very contemporary, the story has been followed for quite a while.
Yeah, and it's constantly changing. Like, even probably since you finished that book, you're probably hearing stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you sort of watch your news feeds and to see what's coming through, different press releases from different archaeological groups. And you're crossing your fingers that the proverbial sort of turn of the archaeologist's spade isn't going to ruin everything. But actually, since the book was completed, a lot of the information has actually corroborated it, specifically to do with the increasing role or increasing understanding of the complexity of Ice Age culture in Ireland, Southeast Asia. Everything that seems to be coming out, the genetic information and so on, sort of further supports that thesis, which is quite gratifying.
Yeah, so that's what fascinated me the most. It was that chapter, I think it was called Isle of the Dragons or something like that. It was about Sundaland and the evolution, and that's the type of stuff that I just haven't heard enough of. Like, I still haven't been able to wrap my head around the difference between what you're researching, like guys like you and Graham Hancock, and compared to what the mainstream paradigm kind of thinks happened. So if you could expand on that part, that was like the one I really want to hit on.
Well, sure. A number of things happen there. So as a group, historians or any kind of academics are kind of idiots. But on an individual basis, a lot of them do quite good work.
Right.
And so when you look at something like Sundaland, so Ireland, Southeast Asia before the end of the Ice Age, you have to talk to geological information. So you have to talk to geologists who kind of said, well, there was a continent twice the size of India here, or a landmass twice the size of India here. And then you talk to geneticists, and they say, well, actually, in terms of the kind of human migration out of Africa, we pretty much jogged along the beach and got there and stayed there for 20,000 years. And then you talk to linguists, and you start to see that cultural complexity outside of Africa sort of first emerged there between 50 and 30,000 years ago. So the skills of the individual kind of academics involved are quite good, but academia is kind of a path of specialization.
Yeah.
But what you actually need is that kind of intertextual way of kind of pulling them all together. So they've kind of accidentally, like the blind man and the elephant, sort of found the best case. I'm not an Atlantologist, but they've sort of found the best case location for it without even really trying. Because if you were to get them individually in a room and say, "Congratulations, you found Atlantis," they would slap you.
That's probably one of our biggest weaknesses, I'd say, nowadays, specialization. Like, that's the problem, is if the power went out tomorrow, like, fucking nobody can make anything.
No, exactly. The good news is that that sort of intertextuality is a skill, and it's one that anyone can learn. Like, you don't actually have to become a biologist and then a linguist and then so on through.
Right.
That kind of analogical thinking is available to anyone. It's a skill you can learn, and I think we should. But yeah.
So let's just get deeper into Sundaland a bit, because I don't know, for some reason I was trying to figure this out with other guests, like just sort it out in my head, but I didn't realize that Sundaland was the landmass that's in where would you say Eastern Asia that was now flooded out since the end of the Ice Age. So that was like where we think that a lot of the, let's say, even more advanced civilization than we thought was there before the Ice Age.
Yeah, I don't like the word civilization too much, and there's quite a bit of unpacking of the dangers of that term in the book.
Right.
I like cultural complexity.
Right. Yeah.
Because one of the kind of main through lines of Starships is what we consider advanced or what we consider civilized. And we all kind of know this. We all sort of pay lip service to the idea that having an iPhone doesn't make us civilized.
Right.
And it's true. But if you try to look for cultural complexity, one, it's a more difficult thing to find because you're talking about songs and worldviews and mythology and sort of attitude to life, which don't necessarily show up quite so easily on the archaeological record. But it also allows you to, I think, look with humility at our ancestors without expecting to find, spaceships and big sort of crystal generators and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So in the case of Sundaland, it's one of the places on Earth that lost the most landmass. In fact, it lost the most at the end of the Ice Age. And it's kind of that sort of Borneo along to Indonesia, Indonesia piece. So big chunks of that area are the mountain ranges of a piece of land that went underwater and presumably quite quickly, or if not in stages, but in quite violent stages, because it's associated with earthquakes and super waves and all that kind of stuff as you end up moving large chunks of ice and other pieces around our kind of squishy Earth.
Yeah, it's funny. That's just kind of the same kind of things we talked about with Randall Carlson and guys like that about how sudden they feel the Ice Age came across, or sort of ended, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily a contentious idea anymore. If you look at the history of geology, it kind of went in and out. So we obviously had a kind of biblical view of the world before we developed in the Enlightenment and the Victorian era, these kind of scientific schools like geology and biology and so on. And one of the reasons there's been, or in the sort of mid-20th century to late 20th century, there was resistance to the idea that the Earth can change quite rapidly, is that it sounded suspiciously like the ghost of that biblical way of seeing the world. The world was built in 6 days, the flood, and so on. So, funnily enough, the geologists of the 19th century just kind of drew a line in the sand and said, nope, geology is slow. Everything happens really, really slow. If you say otherwise, you're some kind of Bible-thumping weirdo. And in many respects, that was a kind of good temporary move because it did sort of wash out some of the maybe non-scientific ways of viewing history. But I think the trouble with scientists is that they don't necessarily study the history of science. So they think that's true rather than a position from which they argued for a while that maybe isn't so useful anymore.
So then the idea is that the migration out of Africa happened not so much like you said on the beaches, but through Eastern Asia, what used to be land mass and now is just water.
Well, yeah, the sort of out of Africa journey is odd. It's very well corroborated, and it doesn't. I know a lot of alternate historians maybe have a problem with the idea, but it doesn't necessarily say anything about the origins of mankind or whether previous kind of colonizing groups had left Africa prior to the sort of 70,000-ish BC time period in which we did leave in this particular thing. Because what can happen is, like, people could have left 150,000 years ago from Africa or wherever, and they all died out. Yeah. And as a result, they don't show up in our genes. Like, it is genuinely as simple as that. But by the same token, the information, funnily enough, becomes more valuable because as long as you don't use it to try to say something it's not saying, which is this is the story of mankind, it's not. It's saying this is the story of the kind of most recent and currently successful colonizing project out of Africa. Now, what happened at the sort of 70,000 mark is they sort of from Northeast Africa, they went across more or less into India and turned right and jogged along the beach because it only took them a few thousand years to get from Africa to island Southeast Asia. There are no other genetic routes that have been so far found, and it's quite well corroborated science that sort of goes out through the Middle East and Eurasia and from there. Like they hugged the coastline and went to island Southeast Asia. Not all as a group. So what you'll find is that you will have kind of like genetic, not backcrossings, but genes showing up from island Southeast Asia back into India because people would have sort of stuck around. But nevertheless, we kind of left Africa, turned right, walked along the beach until we got to what is now Indonesia, and then stayed there for tens of thousands of years, which is odd. But it's actually quite a good landscape at the time because there's from a climatic perspective, there isn't that many super predators. There's no tigers. There weren't crocodiles at the time. That happened towards the end of the Ice Age when it all became marshy. There were lots of rivers, so you had fresh water, you had mountains, you had reasonably good soil, you had access to the ocean, and not that many things were trying to eat you. So it's a very good place for humans to be, and we seem to have enjoyed it because we stayed there for a while, and based on the linguistic evidence, we developed the first kind of big leg up in cultural complexity there since leaving Africa. So you kind of put these pieces together, and as I was writing the book, a lot of the information about Gunung Padang came out, or some of the initial information came out. Right. And that, even if that hadn't happened, that was sort of entirely predicted in the model anyway, because you have people there for enough time and the sort of genetic and linguistic information to suggest an increase in cultural complexity. So if anything, it would be more surprising if we hadn't found something like Gunung Padang.
So what I can't wrap my head around, Darren has ridiculed me for asking this question in previous podcasts, so let's see if he does it again. But it's how the races evolved then. Like how did if we were only coming out of there 70,000 years ago, it doesn't seem like there's enough time for all the different races to evolve on Earth. Like really, that's not, like, to me, it doesn't seem like it's that long ago. Like even if you talk about 10,000 years ago, that's only like 100 grandmas, like 100 of our lifetimes if we're 100 years old.
No, it's not a dumb question. It's a very good question. This is the sort of information that the out of Africa model can't help you with. The way it works is that you take thousands of blood samples across the world and essentially look for the same like mitochondrial DNA sequences and then grandmother them back up, and you sort of assign a kind of a fixed number of years for a generation for it, and then you sort of family tree it back up. Now that does two things. That actually underreports the age because mitochondrial DNA mutates quite rapidly. So when we say we left at 70,000, it's between 70 and 90. Like there's a 20,000 year gap here. It tells us nothing about how humans were built. It tells us nothing about how races evolved. And the question you're asking is a good one, but it's a question to ask evolutionary theory. Like underneath what you're saying is the assumption that the kind of Darwinian evolutionary model that we kind of have jammed down our throats to do with gradual mutations as a result of the local environment is correct. And if you talk to morphological scientists, they'll challenge a lot of that. And we actually see in the lab that you can kind of increased mutations in, a very short number of generations for things like fruit flies and so on. So, like, your question is an open question, and it's a very good one that I certainly can't answer.
Racist.
Quite racist. I was getting to that. Yeah, except for the Jews.
So, what's your thought about it?
I actually don't know. Like, that's one that I would throw back at evolutionary science and go, your explanation for this is moronic, because there are morphological differences that can't happen as quickly as you think they do. It doesn't change the kind of story of mankind out of Africa, because if you're alive outside of Africa today, you can trace yourself back to this colonizing sort of expedition of only a few thousand people, maybe even a few hundred.
Wow.
So that science is quite well corroborated. As to how Chinese people ended up looking Chinese, I can't help you. Like, that is actually one of those things that scientists hope you don't ask, and they'll accuse you of racism because, like, they actually don't know. They're like, yeah, I had no idea. And funnily enough, I was reading in the Scientific American yesterday that science has now gone, oh, race is a construct. It doesn't really exist.
I think it's a choice.
Yeah. Well, when they start saying things like this, it's because they don't have answers that don't break their model.
Right.
And so instead of looking for it, they're going to say it doesn't exist. Chinese people don't look Chinese. And you go, but they do.
Wow. I wonder if it's just because there was so few. Like, maybe, the first people that set out, there was always people of kind of every race. But it was only like one family fucking made it to China, and one family made it to,
How does that? I don't know. Oh, so
that means all the white people are inbred from one family, and all the Chinese people are from one family, and all the, you get it?
Well, because when did they become? When did they
first migration? So in the first migration, there was a family of Indians, there was a family of Chinese people, a family of white people, a family of Mexican people. They all split up, and only one, and then they were the only ones who made it.
Sounds like a children's book to me, or something.
Well, or a Benetton ad. We all go back to a Benetton ad.
It almost seems like it could be the Bible, too. It seems like it would be a good Bible story.
Yeah. Huh. So there is some stuff in your book that you talked about, just for people that aren't aware of the evidence that is from around 30,000 years ago. Like you were talking about, I guess, in Sundaland, there was the cultural complexity, and there is evidence of that. So we weren't just a bunch of, barbarians or whatever back then.
No, absolutely. And that idea is a very mid-20th century idea. We kind of were given stages of civilization, from savagery to barbarism to civilization, by a guy called V. Gordon Childe. And the way he kind of built these categories for all of mankind was savages were hunter-gatherer societies. Barbarians were slightly more complicated than that, but didn't have writing. And once you had writing, you sort of got to be considered a civilization. So there's an unbelievably Eurocentric view of how culture works there, because that makes things like the Incas barbarians, because they had that sort of knotted cord counting and alphabet system. But that makes them barbarians. So even though that idea is wildly out of date, it kind of exists as a deep structure in how history thinks about itself. So the idea has been deeply unpopular since the 70s, and we sort of say, oh, no, hunter-gatherers are, just the same as other cultures or wherever it happens to be. And kind of, like, we know that on a non-racist biological level, that humans are the same in that capacity sense. But we still kind of don't credit them with the corresponding cultural complexity. So we say, oh, no, they're the same. And they go, really? Then why aren't we taking these stories of floods and previous cultures and all that seriously, like we do for, say, the French? Mm-hmm. And that's the bit that they can't answer, because if they've kind of boxed themselves into a corner as a discourse, because they've agreed that, and actually in the book you'll see numerous examples from Australian Aboriginal traditions of floods, like specifically the end of the Ice Age and when Tasmania was cut off from mainland Australia, were retained in the myths of the local tribes and were recorded by sort of missionaries and part of the colonial expedition at a time when we didn't know there was an ice age, at a time before geology. So the stories come through out of sequence and they've been vindicated. So it proves that hunter-gatherer mythologies can retain accurate historical information. So we have that, and we also have the consensus that, you know, people are the same, so that they have the same way of thinking about the world. We just haven't taken it that next step and said, okay, well then let's start investigating these stories, not in a literal sense, but let's take them seriously and see how they match the world and how they match how we see the world. And because the reality is, even though we only left Africa 70-ish thousand years ago, the human brain has been, actually it's gotten smaller, but it's been more or less the same size for 250,000 years, which means 200,000 years ago, we were having the same existential questions when we looked up at the sky as we do now. So these cultures would have had whatever the Ice Age version of Grimerica is, talking about these issues. Probably Grimerica.
I would say more so, because they were less distracted with bullshit.
Well, absolutely. And also, when it comes to the stars, I mean, the book is called Starships for a very specific reason. In the Ice Age, the clue is in the name. Most of the water on Earth, or a significant amount more than today, was locked up in the ice. There's no light pollution, there's less cloud cover, there's no actual pollution, which means if you were sitting out in the Central Australian desert 15,000 years ago, like, the light must have been blinding. Like, talk about the only game in town. As you're sitting out there at night around the fire and just looking up at that sort of dome of stars. I mean, it happens now when you go out into the desert and you think, well, multiply this by 5 and you start to get, and we looked at, that was the only thing on TV for 200,000 years. Yeah. So the sort of
mushrooms.
Yeah, exactly. You put those two together and, you know, suddenly you've got TV on demand. But that's actually the kind of point of the book, which is we've underestimated how much our mythology and the kind of underlying stories of what is the Western esoteric tradition go back to these times and go back to these tales that are intimately associated with the stars. And there are 2 reasons why I wanted to write it. The first is to kind of surface that into kind of popular consciousness. And the second is as a necessary corrective to every time we hear the stars mentioned in a myth, there's a sizable chunk of people who'll just point and go, aliens. And that's a necessarily unsophisticated response.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, we had David Matheson on a couple times. He's written about the myths and the stars, and it's pretty fascinating work. What about OOPAs, like out of place artifacts? We haven't really talked about them a lot on the show, but they keep coming up, and it's something we want to address. I know you brushed upon them in your book. Did you find those that there's some really interesting things that are there for science to actually acknowledge one of these days that show that we're even, you know, going back millions of years?
Well, sure. So there's kind of, we need to separate that into 2 layers because I'm very interested in OOPAs and some of Michael Cremer's stuff for sure. However, what we need to do is kind of build the baseline of things that we can actually know, which is that kind of linguistic and genetic information that's reasonably well corroborated. So we have the kind of broad story of a human migration out of Africa that we're technically still part of now. So that's kind of the information you need as the baseline, because if you don't have that, when you start to find things that like, and they're very good examples, like, you know, pieces of metal that are kind of embedded in million-year-old rock. And these are all quite interesting things that need to be looked at. The story of this book is the story of this current colonizing expedition. A sizable chunk of the OOPAs, like the sort of less interesting ones, if you will, like the 250,000-year-old fire pits that you might find in Britain, which were found last year or the year before. That's a fairly good example that we were not, or a fairly good indication that we were not the only game in town. So that could have been another hominin species that we haven't noticed, or it could have been a previous expedition, like a previous colonial effort that is now gone. When you get to the kind of weirder stuff, when it, like the sort of 1,000,000+ years, it doesn't necessarily, it speaks to kind of like how odd our universe is on a macro level, rather than the specific journey that this particular colonizing group is on. So there are there's nothing in the model described in the book that precludes things like time travel. And I actually think some of Michael Cremer's more interesting stuff may well turn out to be time travel, and we'll kind of accidentally work that out when it gets to 2300 and we lose an expedition going back 1-2 million years. That's entirely predicted. It's not the story in Starships, because that's a very specific story of the origins of the mythology that underpins sort of Western magic. But there's nothing to say that they aren't there. I think some of them are inevitably, with these kind of stories, misinterpretations. Things that he thinks are footprints are probably like trilobite and other organism sort of marks in the mud. Mm-hmm. But there are other ones that are very difficult to kind of explain away, like metal embedded in million-year-old rock. And they definitely invite an explanation or interpretation, but it's something that could happen in the universe described in the book, rather than a piece of information that goes into the thesis.
Well, even those fire pits in the UK, what was the mainstream view of when fire was being used for the first time, or did they have one?
Yeah, not really.
That's pretty tough to pinpoint, I'd say.
Well, again, this falls into that trap about we kind of pay lip service to the idea that humans so far back had the same brain skills as us, but then we decide they're wandering around naked,
exactly.
Not sure how to use fire.
Cold and naked.
Because I tell you what, even I'm looking out over a rainy London street now. It was cold back then too. You're not gonna come to the UK, whatever it was called back then, probably just the K, without knowing how to use fire.
Right. Interesting. What about Easter Island? I like that part in your book as well. You talked a bit about the difference between what the mainstream archaeologists think now compared to what, you had some different senses of how that might have been distorted or just not really looked at in the big picture.
Rapa Nui.
The Rapa Nui, yeah. We just had an email from a listener who had a pretty crazy experience in Rapa Nui with a rainbow. He found himself inside the rainbow.
That wouldn't surprise me. It's the navel of the world, and it quite clearly had spiritual significance before Polynesians lived there, because otherwise, how did they know to go there when they did? And it's always had these kind of unusual associations. The trouble with the Pacific for mainstream archaeology is, even though it literally covers half the surface of the planet, they kind of don't want you to look at it because they've spent this entire time. I mean, my family background is very Pacific oriented. And something I studied at university was this sort of myths and how they overlap across the Pacific. But what they don't want you to do is really kind of pick at that, because you've kind of had this story of human civilization as if it were a jigsaw being built everywhere else. But because the Pacific was sort of the last area to be kind of uneasily absorbed into specifically the British Empire, but, there were Dutch holdings and that kind of thing as well. You're in a situation where you have a jigsaw that you've put together, and the last piece is the Pacific. So you pick up your piece and you look at the one remaining hole in the jigsaw puzzle, and the piece doesn't fit. And it's like, well, shit. What that means is the entire picture, you've put it together wrong, but you sort of don't want to go back and do the jigsaw again. So they're kind of hoping to smash it in. And that's the trouble when it comes to analyzing the Pacific from a mainstream perspective. From an alternative history perspective, there is probably an equivalent, if not greater, amount of nonsense spoken about these things, like this sort of Lemuria and sunken continents in the middle of the Pacific, which just are not there. So trying to correlate in between the two of them means you have to look at the stories and take them seriously. It again comes back to that idea, because if you get to anywhere basically east of New Zealand, they'll tell you they had a sunken homeland, and they'll tell you when they came from it, and they'll tell you what went on there. And, they knew where everyone else was. So that Hawaiians knew where the Tahitians were, and, because for a culture built on the sea, we view the ocean as a barrier. They view it as a highway. And the way you navigate through this this is with that very explicit star law in the book. In the case of Rapa Nui, it was quite clearly... There's very good archaeological evidence to indicate when it was colonized, around the sort of 800 to 1000 AD mark. But that doesn't mean that was the first time Rapa Nui kind of appeared in the cultures of the Pacific. It was, I contend that it was a sacred site before that, because if you look at sort of Dr. Robert Schock's research on some of the older moais, there appears to be sort of different levels of moai building, or different eras of moai building on the island. And some of the oldest ones are the basalt ones. And you can kind of tell because they've been repurposed into the platforms that the more recent moai will put on, and they have sort of different carvings on them, or they've been used to build circular huts and so on. So whatever the colonization event that brought the Rapa Nuians there between sort of 800 and 1000 AD, they were not the first brown men on the island. I would contend perhaps like something like Göbekli Tepe, it was a sacred place that people would come to visit from sort of further afield based on a particular sort of moment in their calendar. So I think it may that would be my contention as to how that happened. And it could have just been population pressures or disease or something that happened that led them to kind of permanently occupy it about 1,000 and a bit years ago.
Yeah.
Could be something as easy as getting shipwrecked or something, I guess, right? Like you're not canoeing back.
Well, yes and no, because I mean, there's no trees on the island now, but they could have built some.
Yeah, there used to be quite a bit, but I wonder, like, were they traveling around in canoes back then, or were they building bigger ships?
Well, it depends. You sort of have outrigger canoes, so they still have sails and they can have multiple hulls and so on. They're definitely fit for purpose for getting somewhere, but the trouble with the shipwreck hypothesis is we underestimate when we look at it on a map just how big the Pacific is. That is not even needle in a haystack stuff.
Right.
Whereas it seems to me more likely that a colonizing group head for a place they knew, kind of like, I don't know, you fall on hard times and you move into your log cabin in the woods. Like, we have this property. For whatever reason, we're going to permanently occupy it. It may have been intertribal war. It could have been anything. But the story of Rapa Nui in the Pacific is patently older than its first evidence of colonization about 1,000 years ago. And it makes sense when you realize that there are genetic and sort of food-based evidence for trans-Pacific trading that goes back to before the end of the Ice Age. Like the genes in the food in South America is showing up in what was Sundaland. So they're definitely getting across. This again comes back to that realization of just how complex and long-lived these cultures were. I mean, our culture, if you date it to, for no good reason other than this is how we measure our calendar, 0 AD. If you think about the cultures that existed in Sundaland, they were around for 10 times minimum what we've done now. Yeah. So of course they made it to South America. Of course they made it to Japan. Yeah. You give us 10 times 2,000 years, and we'll be out of the solar system.
Yeah, and there's definitely those similarities between Göbekli Tepe and Easter Island.
Yeah, absolutely. Some really curious glyphs which suggest like the sort of H belt buckle on the main sort of T-shaped pillars of Göbekli Tepe appears, and the curious kind of long, dare I say, alien-shaped hands that sort of sit on the bellies. You can... these things emerge from the same kind of artistic movement, no question. And you don't have an artistic movement without at least some overlap of cosmologies, even though we're dealing with, time differences of 9,000-10,000 years.
So, what else? What next? Oh my God. So you get quite a bit in your book. You talk quite a bit about Göbekli Tepe, and then you also talk quite a bit about Egypt, and maybe we can get into the, you also talk about the history of the spirits as well. Maybe we should get into that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Take your pick.
I guess Egypt. is we just had John Anthony West on, and then every time I think I've sort of got the latest on Egypt, something new kind of creeps up, and I heard some stuff in your book about Paul Horn and the acoustics in the King's Chamber, which was very interesting. But I was wondering if you'd paid attention to that news article that came out about the thermal anomalies in one of the pyramids there.
Yeah, I did. Again, a lot of the information that would sort of cause the mainstream, there's no such thing as mainstream Egyptology. At this point in time, it is a corrupt rogue cult. But its kind of core tenets would melt like cake in the rain if we actually just turned around and looked at some of the information that's already there. The French in 1980 did sort of thermal imaging, and they saw the internal kind of ramp, like a spiral ramp, and the corners cut out to get some of the rocks into it. There's been multiple dating tests of the Great Pyramid that shows it falls between sort of 200 and 500 years outside of the Old Kingdom. So all these pieces are in place before you get to it, and now we're kind of Egyptology is sort of caught that I fucking love science disease, which is it's essentially PR for nonsense. So this whole, we might find Nefertiti's tomb behind Tutankhamun's. This guy was he was a nobody inbred, who was murdered because presumably the priest was still angry at what his dad did. So we kind of lack that context to get the story right. And I love John Anthony West. I think he's he's an amazing person, and he will constantly say that the most interesting and weirdest thing about Egypt is that it started off really complicated and sophisticated and kind of got worse, and it did. So when it comes to the Old Kingdom kind of building project, clearly it was a coherent building project, and clearly we have missed a trick when it comes to what they considered advanced technology versus what we do, because they didn't have land speeders and helicopters and all that other ancient aliens crap. But they were probably, given that they're the inheritors of a 50,000-year-old megalithic culture, they were probably quite good with stone. And this is where some of the information in the book, I think, people need to kind of reconsider. Because funnily enough, the archaeological and scientific evidence in the Egypt chapter aligns more with John Anthony West than it doesn't, because he's talking about the belief systems. But the fact that the Great Pyramid is some kind of, resurrection guitar that you can stand in or lie down in corroborates his idea that this was a profoundly spiritual people. And what did he say? Which is not necessarily, I disagree slightly, but it's more right than it is wrong. Egypt was a one-issue civilization. And it was that kind of securing immortality in life, particularly for kings, but just in general, as that kind of the magic of immortality sort of democratized through the different kingdoms to the point you get to the late period and then everyone has it. But that's still quite clearly there, and the kind of megalithic and stone building sophistication we find. We expect sophistication to be metallurgical because ours is. But, and we'll be great with metal again in 50,000 years' time, or actually 45. We've been using it for a while. But they did stone for 50,000 years. So by the time you get to the Old Kingdom, the idea that, we have no idea where this came from. I'm like, well, I do. They had 50,000 years of stone making. They certainly got better at it. And probably, if you consider the Old Kingdom to be the sort of apex of Neolithic and Paleolithic civilization, then you have the first intermediate period where they get invaded and there's diseases and it collapses and they have to rebuild civilization. That's kind of, if we consider the Old Kingdom to be the beginning, it's the end of a story. It kind of peaked with the fourth dynasty. And then there was some crap dynasties at the end, and then the country collapsed and then it had to rebuild.
That's kind of like starting the book in chapter 6.
Yeah, it is absolutely that. And that's fine for a while, because the other side of it is the ancient aliens types kind of inventing whole cloth chapters 1 through 5. And inevitably, there's probably a more parsimonious interpretation that falls halfway in between the two. And I mentioned in the book that I'm very open to the idea of extraterrestrial visitation throughout history. And again, much like Atlantis, it's something I've been looking for 20 years. It's not there yet. Like, I'm open to it. But the fact that it doesn't happen so uneasy, let me back that up. The fact that it appears to have happened too late for it to actually have made a difference kind of invalidates it. So the ancient alien hypothesis tends to be one that supports your preferred beginning of civilization. But the whole point of the book is that civilization didn't begin with Sumeria and Egypt. We have this tremendous cultural complexity going further back. So I think, again, it's kind of like splitting it into two layers and going, well, let's actually work out what we do know about humans from 70,000 or so years ago to now, and then see which bits may be extraterrestrial, which bits may be extra-dimensional. The other part that I think problematizes it, I mean, I'm a huge Jacques Vallée fan. And if you look at instances of there are a couple of instances in history that I think are just flat-out UFO visitations. There's the sort of Magonia experience where he got the word from, where Bishop Abogard of Lyon was complaining about the sort of savages around him believing in these wizards from Magonia, which was a civilization in the clouds. But they'd actually captured one. Like, all these ships coming from Magonia, and one of them had sort of landed, and the local peasants had captured a couple of them. Now, that's a contemporary and weird story. The other one is, again, it's another sort of Catholic one. But the miracle at Fatima looks like just a flat-out UFO incident. In both these cases, you'll notice they don't form new religions. They're interpreted with the kind of religion of the time. Yeah. So even if there were, and I mean, why wouldn't there be? I mean, these seem to be fairly common occurrences. So even if there were full-blown, quote-unquote, UFO incidents in Egypt or Sumeria, they would be interpreted into the belief systems of the time, because that sort of seems to be how it works. It can sort of warp within it, and that's kind of one of Jacques Vallée's theses. But the idea that again, we have to credit our humans with, our ancestors with a little bit more intelligence. You get this funny-looking being coming down in his nuclear-powered rocket ship to force you to mine gold to save his atmosphere. I'd tell them to fuck off. Again, they're the same as us. You'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to eat you, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they came down and helped build the pyramids or anything. They could have just been, doing what they have been doing for the last few hundred years as well, just sort of slightly intervening. And
yeah, I still like the idea that there's been high civilization throughout forever. Like 1 million years ago, there was high civilization that just got fucking annihilated by something, and it all just starts over again. Something
geological or something?
Geological, cosmological, self whatever,
Well, when you're dealing with long enough timelines, that's entirely possible. There's nothing, I mean, as I said, Starships is a story of kind of our little colonial expedition. But it's a 70,000-year-old story, so it's kind of longer than most people dealing with mythology are used to thinking about. But that's an eye blink in the existence of humans and the existence of the planet. So there's absolutely no reason why we couldn't have had multiple full-on resets. People underestimate how much stuff you can find on an archaeological basis. But again, here in London, most of the Victorian stuff is gone, and you find things that, the Victorian era was 100 and a bit years ago, and you sort of dig stuff out and go, oh, look at this. There's a whole theatre here. And you go, how did you lose that? It's not even that long ago. So we don't, if it's not your career, people tend to underestimate just how difficult archaeology is when it comes to finding things. So yeah, I don't at all rule out that as a possibility.
I wonder, I'd like to think that in my lifetime they're going to find something crazy on the moon or on Mars or on, one of these outer planets. They're going to find some sort of fucking cathedral or monolith or something.
Well, how old are you?
34.
Yeah, so, well, they have. Particularly when it comes to Mars. I go in and out on the moon. But I don't know if you've had Dr. John Brandenburg on, but...
No, but we're going to have to.
Yeah, you have to. My goodness. He's a full-blown rocket scientist and Mars scientist, but so he's been around the people that have known since the 70s at JPL and NASA that there's stuff on Mars that's artificial. That's not even woo anymore. Like the Russians, the Chinese, everyone knows about it. It's just that NASA stands for Never a Straight Answer. It's a paramilitary organization. So, fortunately for you, you have lived long enough for mankind to find weird shit on Mars.
Perfect. Can I get some up-close, high-def pictures of it yet? I want to see what alien infrastructure looks like. Or is it even alien? Like, I mean, I think, what do you think about where we came from? Do you think we came from Mars down the line someplace?
It's a very good question. I don't know if you're familiar. I mean, maybe you guys have been reading the blog, but are you familiar with the pimp hypothesis?
Oh, yeah. This is one of Darren's favorites.
Yeah. He was telling me about the bonobo fucked a pig like a couple 100,000 years ago?
Yeah.
I like how it's pimp instead of, what would it be?
Chig?
Bip or chig. Yeah.
It was always going to be pimp.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, well, again, this is kind of the difference between having data and interpretations. It's unavoidable on a biological basis that we have morphological characteristics of pigs and chimps. So again, we get back to the sort of evolutionary guess that we came from monkeys. You go, yeah, well, what about half the pig stuff? Like the cells in our body and the shape of the nose and even things like how the subcutaneous fat layer works are all from pigs. And they are definitively from pigs. The question becomes how we ended up with a half pig, half chimp, and how that became a human. Now, this isn't a story in Starships because that we're talking now at a time depth of between 3 and 2 million years ago when that happened. And literally the only kind of scientific guess as to how it would have occurred is genuinely a male pig having sex with a female bonobo, but then back-crossing repeatedly so that octoparrot monster that managed to come to term then went and did it again and again and again for sort of 5 or 6 generations. Now, that strikes me as extremely unlikely for a number of reasons. It's creepy, but 2, what you tend to happen when you cross breeds fully like that, they end up being infertile. So if you look at like donkeys and mules and so on, when you crossbreed them, they tend not to be able to breed, and humans have done quite a good job of breeding. So again, we're into this weird, tantalizing situation of going, well, I don't know where humans came from, but there are some scientific kind of findings that need to be adequately modeled that look kind of creepily like interpretations of some ancient myths about how we were built. And, I don't know what the answer to that is, but it's nevertheless there.
And the big question is, why do I like bacon so much?
Or why are there so many rules against eating pig?
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought is interesting, right? Is like, maybe they know, maybe the Jewish religion, or I think that's not just Jewish people, is it? Is that a Islam thing too?
It's Jews, it's Islam, there's sort of different Babylonian groups. So the Jews kind of inherited it. It was probably, to be fair, it was probably a sacred symbol of a god that they decided didn't exist or didn't want to be associated with. So if it was a sacred symbol for a goddess or so on, they would have said, we're not eating pig. But nevertheless, why was it a sacred symbol for that goddess? And then you sort of move further down. It's turtles all the way down when you start to think like this.
Huh. So
yeah, that's weird. I mean, who knows? I mean, bonobos seem like they're pretty open to sexual things. So, I mean, maybe... who knows? I've seen stranger shit on the History Channel or on the Discovery Channel.
I thought you were going to say seen stranger shit on the internet.
Yeah,
well, definitely that. Definitely that.
That's
but
what I thought. Like, how strange can they get on the Discovery Channel?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Clear your internet history.
So what people are going to wonder about this Mars thing. So, because, obviously it's contention. Every day you see a new picture of this new anomaly that's just, looks like pareidolia to me. But, you do wonder, there was the face on Mars and all that kind of stuff. So what kind of thing are you talking about? Are you talking about megalithic structure or just...
Some of them. But again, so Dr. John Brandenburg's research is another one of those open and shut pieces of science that needs explanation. Kind of like the pimp, kind of like, a whole bunch of stuff in Starships.
Mm-hmm.
And it is this, which is that there is an elevated level of xenon-129 in the Martian atmosphere atmosphere at a time depth of between 250 and 500 million years ago. Now, xenon 129 is a weapon signature. It does not occur in nature. We have it in the human atmosphere because we've dropped a lot of bombs. And so the only place that has a spike in the atmosphere that looks like ours is Mars. And the trouble with half-lives is that, I mean, it sounds like it's a big window, but it's a very, very old weapon signature. So it's somewhere between 500 million and 250 million years ago, long before there were humans. Like there were some kind of shitty dinosaurs on the Earth at the time, all the crap kind of like Triassic ones. But nevertheless, that weapon signature needs to be answered. And that's how he kind of got caught up in the whole Mars thing when he was working in the 70s, because he was sort of showing it to people or showing it to a JPL scientist in a library while he was waiting to have it photocopied or photostated or whatever it's called in the 70s. And like a nuclear physicist, because he was a plasma physicist, looked at it and said, somebody nuked Mars. And then he kind of went quiet and walked off because he realized he'd said something in a public space that he should not have said. But that information has been available at like a NASA and JPL level since the 70s. This is sort of Viking atmosphere data. So you say what you want about the face on Mars or any of the other structures. Oh, and the other thing that kind of maybe perhaps further corroborates that these structures were artificial, because I believe they were, at least some of them, is that Dr. Brandenburg's actually worked out where the two giant bombs that were dropped from space, because they were atmospheric explosions, otherwise they'd be craters, kind of like what we did to Hiroshima. You blow it up over a civilization and it does more damage. And there are two of them, and they're near, it was Galactus Chaos, which has other kind of face-looking things, and Cydonia. So, that's interesting.
Yeah.
There's weapon signatures in the atmosphere over areas where NASA will swear black and blue that there aren't artificial structures, but every time the satellites go near it, what do you know? We can't see it, or it vanishes. And this is the kind of, you have to be, like, it's not even skepticism it's not even skepticism anymore. It's denialism if people don't actually want to look at this information. I don't know what it is, but I know what I'm being lied to, and I know what it isn't, and what it isn't is nothing.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it is just like misinformation, really. I mean, most people, even in the age of the internet, is still kind of in its infancy. And most people, I mean, especially, I don't think we've even got to the generation yet that's really starting to be open up to most of these ideas. Like, I think that's still probably my kids' away.
Yeah, there might be something to that. I hope it's a little bit closer, but you're probably right. These things, mankind.
I mean, it seems
mankind inevitably disappoints.
Yeah, it almost seems like, honestly, as cryptic as it sounds, the only fucking way that this stuff moves forward is for the old guard to start dying off. For the people that are kind of sitting in the seats of power, to pass it on to the next guy, and he's going to be, he's going to be
a little more open. Maybe
3/4 of the way he's going to be full on with whatever his mentor told him, but he's going to have that extra little bit because, his, it's almost like my kids will still be affected because they're going to be starting school in a couple of years, and they're still teaching bullshit in school right now. Some of it's getting worse.
But do you think, that sort of presupposes that the conspiracy is for relatively benign reasons. That is, they simply don't want to, make us anxious at the reality of civilizations outside of Earth. And I don't think that is the reason for the sort of omerta at a sort of super elite level for this information. I think there are multiple reasons for it, but we don't end up getting that disclosure largely because most of the stuff that we consider UFOs over the 20th century was, black projects that inevitably involve really bad things like, testing psychedelics on kids and all this kind of stuff. So you can't ever get out of an official in the US or Britain or anywhere else that was doing it, people to come and say, well, it turns out it's correct, because then you kind of have to work down the list and go, no, that was us stealing your children. No, that was us, testing weaponized anthrax in the New York subway. There's too many skeletons in the closet for it. In terms of sort of space industry politics, another thing that I think Dr. Brandenburg covers in his book is that anything that's in space that's kind of robot-based. So sending drones and little robots is a JPL mission. Anything that requires humans is a NASA mission or other sort of private organizations underneath it, which means JPL has a financial sort of incentive or imperative to not find anything that would cause us to send astronauts, because then they have to give the mission and the billions they get every year over to it. So the JPL, if it's a drone or a robot, JPL does it. So you kind of have layers of sort of financial motivations or poor system signals that prevented it at beginning. So I think you'll get within the space industry, at least the public one, different people knowing different things, because there's so much money, especially during the Cold War. There's just so much money involved. So the idea that you could get JPL to turn around and go, oh, so there's some shit on the moon that you missed. That's a recipe for disaster from running a business's perspective.
But then there's all the public funded satellites and all that. I just heard that one of the Canadian crowdfunded CubeSat ones is already, they've raised enough to build the satellite. Now they just got to launch it. So, I mean, Darren, it's only a matter of time before.
That's the kind of thing you might even be able to get someone like, if you could get the right people in place to start sucking up to, some sort of philanthropic billionaire, like what's his name from PayPal, Elon Musk, maybe he'd give you a deal. 90% off.
No, we need better billionaires. We need kind of like the weirder 19th century, 20th century ones that kind of lock themselves in their room and bottle their own urine, rather than the ones we have now, which are crap, that sort of want to live forever in this horrible bro future of paleo dieting and supplements and I don't know, living forever on Mars and all this just horrible Silicon Valley nonsense.
Yeah,
but they've all bought into this transhumanist nonsense, and it is nonsense. So we just need one. We need some kind of weirdo billionaire who isn't interested in that, because finding this stuff out is actually very low cost. Like from a billionaire perspective, I don't think we can afford it.
Right. Yeah,
but it could even just be the right inheritor now. Again, we just got to wait a couple generations until Elon Musk's grandkids listen to the Grimerica show, to this episode, and they're like, let's fucking go to Mars.
Episode. Well, what about the secret space program already going to Mars? I mean, I'm not necessarily sold on that, but I'm sold that I almost, I'm stuck on the belief that there are humans flying around in spaceships. It's not all ET. So, I mean, why can't they go to Mars? If they can fly around and do the crazy things they're doing in our atmosphere, maybe they are going to Mars.
I would think, in my mind, it would all be in military. Like, if they're doing anything on the moon, it's so that they can fuck up Russia or, something.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's beyond that. I think the people that are involved in that are beyond the geopolitics of the world, I think.
Well, they are, and there's also, it's sort of quite a good point when you realize from the mid-20th century on, it's Dr. Farrell's point. In the mid-20th century, the American security apparatus realized they had three problems. They had the Soviets, they had the Nazi International, and they had the UFO phenomenon, whatever it was. So, and as a result, you get the NSA and the CIA and an explosion of unlimited money going into these black projects. So it's quite clearly not the Russians. So we don't actually know whether, this is really dumb and I don't mean it that way, but we don't actually know how much of that kind of deranged secret space spending is for our benefit. So I don't think it's fucking up the Russians. I think it's just the sort of unbelievable wealth. Like there are meteors made of diamond out there, I think it's the kind of unbelievable wealth component. And if there is a military aspect, well, there's clearly a military aspect to it, but if there is a military component, it may well be based on an off-world threat that we just don't have visibility over. But I mean, there's clearly a secret space program, because you start to see all these pieces like fusion engines and whatever tumble out of it. And also the West spent unlimited money on it over 60 years. The three of us could get into space with unlimited money and the ability to kill with impunity.
I think we could get Graham into space cheaper than that, because I'm willing to cut some corners.
He doesn't have to come back. He can be like that Russian duck.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just podcast him into oblivion.
Yeah.
I would say greed. I mean, I would agree that, if it wasn't military, greed would be right up there.
So I put nothing past that kind of. It's absurd to call it military or government or secret government when the majority of it is private. The majority of government is sort of, it's a fulfillment office for, some very powerful private people. So at that kind of level, at that depth, the difference between private and not is irrelevant. But I see no evidence. Why would I? I see no evidence for it that they've made it to Mars now, but I would not be even at the tiniest bit surprised if he woke up tomorrow and found out, oh yeah, they've been using these sort of fusion rockets to go backwards and forwards there for the last 15 years. It's just that the old Russian satellite accidentally took a photo of it. I put nothing past them, and it's kind of predicted in the model of unlimited spending and a century of kind of pulling back behind the curtain any piece of technology that gets slightly interesting, so that we've sort of been dealing with only half of physics for the last 60 years.
Exactly.
So you put those pieces together, and I mean, I've run projects for my real job. Like, I've run projects that aren't anything to do with this. I work in media, but you sort of give me enough money and 3 decent developers, and we create wonders, useless wonders, because it's in advertising and what have you. But you think, goodness, if I had an underground fucking base and 500 nuclear physicists and a whole lot of money, that's what I mean. Like, even I could get to Mars. So it's speculative, but it's speculative based on the amount of money we've pissed up the wall on these things.
That's what I think people...
I wonder how cheap you do. This reminds me of The Astronaut Farmer again. Did you watch it yet?
No.
Have you seen The Astronaut Farmer?
I also have not.
Oh, wow.
Let's just drop that one.
Might as well drop that. You guys got to watch it by the next show.
But what I think people underestimate is the amount of technology that's going on in those labs you're talking about, right? Like, there's all the labs in the States, for example. There's the one Brookhaven and Bell Labs and all those secret. They have thousands and thousands of scientists. Like, it's not happening in academia. The technology is happening in secret in these labs. Like, that's where.
And we also underestimate just how many people are playing with it. So, again, a personal career anecdote from about 5-6 years ago, when I was working for a media business that covered the global telecoms industry. So I was at a really boring conference in Milan, because it's sort of the back end of telecoms. You think it's fun, like Android mobiles and stuff. It's not. It's like fiber to the home and all that. It's just, so boring. And I walk into the sort of big auditorium, and there... And this is, 2009. And there at the front desk are these large plasma screens that had 3D TVs. And not that that's that impressive, even in 2009, except for the fact that I wasn't wearing glasses. And the business that built it was like an Indian fiber or cable company. And so I'm sort of standing there looking at these screens that have 3-dimensional kind of spaceships and asteroids, and a fiber company in India built that. So the kind of the capex that we're talking about is enormous, especially when if you look at sort of the research of Dr. Paul Laviolette, you can kind of get into space for not even 140 million using some of the technology. Like, and not just like get into space, but like fuck about in the solar system, get into space. So when you sort of realize, speaking of cutting corners, not just how much money the US defense industry has spent, but how little you actually have to spend, and how many people out there on a corporate level have their own kind of Q branches where they're just messing with weird stuff. Like Sony found telepathy in 2010, 11, and they published it. By the way, telepathy exists, and they worked this out. They worked this out because when you're actually game testing and you have multiple players, they had the best possible kind of volumes of data to work out who could predict the movements of another player in another room or so on. And so they actually had massive volumes of data, got some statisticians to sit down and go, yeah, telepathy exists. Here you go. Here's the information. They found it by accident, game testing. Yeah. So can you imagine if you're doing something a little bit more interesting than that, and you find something a little bit more interesting, you don't have to be like Boeing or Raytheon to kind of pull on that thread.
And you don't have to disclose it to the public.
God, no. Well, that's why all this stuff is private. That was, thank you, Bush Sr. For, that's what his job was, moving from the CIA to becoming Veep and then president. But he ran the CIA, and then when he becomes vice president, he's the one in charge of giving out top secret clearances to private contractors. And then you have, during the 80s, you have Reagan and him selling all these government-funded toys to the private sector, which he's also just kind of stapled top secret clearance badges to. And you go, hang on. Well, that's interesting. So most of it is there. And that's a kind of paper trail where you go, the idea that Star Wars was shut down, it wasn't. It was sold. It's the same as HARP. It's just that if you watch the news on NBC, they go, oh, they're shutting down HARP. And I'm like, no, they're not. They sold it.
And Stargate too, probably. And somewhat not really sold, but it's still going, I bet.
Yeah, well, you get some really enigmatic comments because we only have a tiny sliver of that story because only part of it is out.
Yeah.
But if some of the things Dr. Targ says in that kind of, I love him, I'd love to adopt him. I think he's adorable. Yeah. But some of the enigmatic statements he makes, like, I would not be surprised if there isn't a basement in the Pentagon where this stuff still continues. And you go, well, frankly, Dr. Targ, I'm going to take that to the bank. Because I know there are things you can and can't say. And that's quite a good way of sort of enigmatically saying, oh, well, they're clearly still using this stuff because it worked. It worked for 25 years. Why would you stop using something that's extremely low cost that works?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
I suppose it's that easy to make something go black. Just give it to the private. Here you go.
But that's exactly the point, and that's what the Church Committee did. It kind of pushed all that weird, creepy MK Ultra, sort of see-through walls, mind control stuff into the private sector because they weren't going to. They invested a lot of money and time into these really dangerous technologies. They're not going to just, because of some congressman, just get rid of it. And if none of it worked, I mean, Richard Helms said in the 70s to the Church Committee, like, oh, it didn't work. I said, well, then why did you shred 2 million documents before this meeting? If it didn't work, Mr. Helms. He worked for Bush, of course. But, yeah, this stuff goes private where you can't Freedom of Information Act it.
So I hate jumping back from this topic because I love this chat as well, but if I was listening to this episode and I was listening to the John Anthony West episode, I'd be like, okay, you guys have never addressed the pyramids and how they were built. I don't think we ever talked to John about that. And I know you do address it in your book a little bit. So, we talked about it, it's not necessarily aliens or anything like that, but the current paradigm of how the pyramids were built, it really hasn't been answered yet, right? Like in your mind, is it still open for debate?
An actual child would not believe the official story of how the Great Pyramid works. And I proved that when I asked my nephew, when I tried to describe the sort of ramp theory to him, because he's a Thomas the Tank Engine nut and likes trucks and all this stuff. And he's just like, you should have seen the look on his face. Like, this is clearly the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Because the world expert in the Giza complex, Mark Lehner, says because we can't find the workers' villages, because it turns out the things he thought were workers' villages were actually residences for high-born foreign visitors, which is not something you expect of a tomb. Anyway, there they are. So he's like, okay, so we have a problem. We can't find the ramp and we can't find the workers' village. And we're not talking like, picking up a few people in a Walmart car park. We're talking 20,000 people to build this thing in 20-something years, minimum. So he's decided that they lived on the ramp that was used to build it. And by the way, to build such a ramp, you end up using more mass than in the actual pyramid. Right, so they sort of they leave it behind. And so he's like, well, the reason we can't find it is maybe they lived on it. I'm like, do you mean they lived on what you need to do is go and ask a foreman how fucking dumb that is. To actually put, because it's not just humans like in sleeping bags. There's kitchens and latrines and everything, and you want to be sliding 20-40 ton rocks through a village in the sky to build this pointy tomb. Like, there's actually no way you can not laugh at the official story of it. Unfortunately, that absurdity, that just inability to step outside a patently wrong model leads to a lot of kind of zanier theories that come rushing in that aren't particularly helpful. And frankly, I think some of them are full-blown COINTEL attempts because if you get the pyramid right, if you get Egypt right, I don't mean right like I found the answer. I mean, if you realize the implications of the Old Kingdom and specifically the kind of Giza complex, if you realize that, it changes everything about your life. And that's kind of where one of the things I love about John Anthony West is that he realizes that when you actually get what Egypt is about, there's no getting the toothpaste back into that tube.
It's like sex.
Well, it's, I don't know, you went from toothpaste to sex? Yeah.
No, that's what
Crown can go from pretty well anywhere to sex.
That's what John says. He says, because, you think you know what it is until you get there in Egypt, and then it's completely different.
Well, so Egypt has been, since the dynastic period, Egypt has been almost a remote initiation machine that can initiate people at a distance just by thinking about it. So if you look at its inspiration through the kind of Dark Age sort of Arabic alchemists, and then up through the Renaissance and into the kind of Hermetic sort of Freemasonic underground of the 1700s to the building of Washington, D.C., to all this stuff, like to Napoleon, to whoever. Like, if you think about Egypt for long enough, it changes you. Which is what that was their kind of easy confidence about being, we're that civilization, we're the mirror of heaven, that's kind of what this is about. So, but particularly with the Giza pyramid, you start to realize that there are things that are more important, and quite frankly, we are, it's again coming back to that V. Gordon Child view of the development of civilization. Quite frankly, it makes you realize we are not even close to the smartest humans that have lived in the last little while, because there's just nothing like it. And there are about 50 things. You could go on to the hundreds, but there are about 50 things in the Giza Plateau that break history just by looking at them. And so we have to look at them and then kind of decide which of the wackier theories matches that rational or scientific interpretation of the anomalies. So, for instance, there are things there that are built out of diorite, which is stronger than steel. And so you'll go to the Egyptian Museum and you'll see the statue of Khafre, or the Cairo Museum rather, and you'll see the statue of Khafre made of diorite, and it's beautiful. And next to it, you'll see a copper tool and like a stone ball. And they say they built this with this. The copper would bend like a wet herring on diorite. But those are the only tools that Egypt is allowed to have had. And you go, well, that's a scientific impossibility. Like, you actually, back to the drawing board Egyptologists, that actually can't happen. They're like, yes, it can. And you go, no, it can't. Let me.
It just takes a real long time.
But it physically cannot.
You got to get some water, and then you put some sand on there. And then you just keep at it, okay? Perseverance.
It's stronger than sand. It's stronger than steel. You can't actually. That's the thing. It breaks the model fundamentally right there. To say nothing of that's what I mean. It's just one piece, but you get dozens of them. And one of the ones I know John's a fan of is the sort of convex. Crystal kind of they're essentially contact lenses, but they're the crystal pieces that were put in the eyes of some of the Old Kingdom statues. One, there's obviously some kind of light reflective thing going on there to do with, bringing the god down into that statue or what have you. But nevertheless, they have shaped quartz into what is a lens. So it kind of begs the question of exactly when it was we got telescopes, because if they're making lenses for statues, surely someone's going to look through one of them before they put it in the eye and go, oh, things appear closer in this. But also you actually can't, that's another one, you can't curve the quartz to do that without a sort of stone Masonic method that we don't have. And unfortunately, those things have led us to provide technological answers, which is that Egypt had batteries and buzzsaws and all this, which seems extremely unlikely, to say the least. Nevertheless, we're left with, well, they have these amazing technological capabilities specifically with stone. But again, coming back to my point, but when you realize that this is the apex of of a culture that has been, or cultures that have been dealing with stone for tens of thousands of years, well, of course they're going to be shit hot at it. These things, the Great Pyramid is the iPhone of the Old Kingdom.
So I wonder if it doesn't somehow go back to, like, you see some of those different walls in South America and how perfectly the stones interlock. It makes you wonder if it's not somehow liquefying it.
Well, it is. The book goes into Dr. DoBeDoBeDo's theory about that. Again, because of our sort of technological journey through the Industrial Revolution being very sort of metal-centric, it's only been in the last 50 or so years that we've looked at how we've looked at the chemical components of stone and whether you can do these things. And the reality is, again, Egyptology is kind of, well, it's not only a cult, but it's a humanities subject. It doesn't require any science skills at all. You just kind of go to Egypt and make stuff up, genuinely. The people who've kind of pushed alternate Egyptology forward have had specialist skills that Egyptologists can't have. So Robert Bauval had decades of experience building in the desert. So of course he's going to have that's where he formulated the Orion theory and all this, because you could kind of understand what they were doing, standing there looking at it and different sight lines. Dr. DoBeDoBeDo is a sort of chemical engineer who's a concrete specialist, so he knows how you liquefy rock and have it re-solidify. So I actually think that's essentially the only, not the only. He is heading in the right direction with that. We may not know the full process as to how, but you can actually build, not that Khufu built it, but you can actually build a pyramid in his time period if it's a liquefied process. So you kind of build the base, and then you use sort of lye and sort of shavings off the nearby wadis, and they chemically react. So you have these sort of pits of mildly toxic cement, effectively, and then you sort of walk up the pyramid, and it means you don't have the ramp problem because it's just humans carrying baskets of muck, and you just kind of tip it in and off you go. And he actually did tests of, if that was the case, what you would find is that the pyramid crete would align to magnetic north, because it's not like you're sort of forming a stone at that time, and that's what stones do that have granite in particular, anything that has components that can be magnetized. And he did a test of 3 stones, and 2 of them were, which kind of suggests that he's correct. They were concretizing it in some way. But funnily enough, understanding that makes you realize, or makes you look again at the Khafre statue made of diorite, because there are no tool marks on it. But if they had a way of sort of building that out of molds, that goes some way to, I mean, I'm using the words glibly, but that goes some way to sort of explaining how you end up with avenues of identical sphinxes in Karnak and all this stuff. You go, well, if they're coming out of molds, this is starting to make a lot more sense. And why wouldn't it, when you realize that the chemical components required were all there? Like, it was wood ash from cooking fires, and it was Nile water during the flood that turned into clay, and lye, which again, during the building of the Great Pyramids, according to Herodotus, they would ask for the ash from cooking fires from up and down Egypt. Whether that happened or not, I mean, he wrote thousands of years after they were built. You start to see that this begins to make some kind of alchemical sense, especially as you think of the folk memories of what Egypt was to the Arab alchemists and so on. And alchemy is that kind of very stone-specific form of mysticism. So the idea that the guys who invented it, like Imhotep, were masters of working with stone, and that's what they were asked to do, because for them, these stone structures are kind of like our machines. They're immortality machines. They're magical devices. I'm not sure where it's going. Like, I go to pains in the book to say this is a correlation of research that allows us to kind of reposition and start looking in maybe that direction. And I think we just need to be honest with ourselves. The pushback again is almost inherited that, oh, of course they couldn't do that because they were dumb. And you go, but you just said they weren't. And you get caught back in that hunter-gatherer trap. And you go, well, let's be reasonable about it. We have the scientific evidence, and we can all reach a consensus that their brains were the same size as ours or slightly larger. Where's the problem?
Isn't there a couple other arguments they're using now to say that that wasn't the case? Like, I don't know if it's the composition of some of the stones but I mean, I think you're thinking
geopolymers, is that what they're called?
Yeah, the geopolymer stuff.
Yeah, I think it could be a mixture of both, is what you're saying, right?
No question. Like, it is definitively a mixture of both, at least when it comes to the Great Pyramid, because some of the the stone inside the sort of relief chambers, which relieve nothing. As I said, it's a guitar. Like they're
that's what I wanted to get into. Yeah.
But they definitively came from Aswan. So there are pieces of stone that have been definitively identified from elsewhere in Egypt. But that begs the question of why. And the why is magical, quite clearly. These stones had some kind of magical component that had to be built into something else. So again, you kind of have, we have this geopolymer skill, but if we're building a resurrection machine, we need these kind of stones that have a magical quality for whatever reason. We won't know. It's so far ago, but that matches how magic works and how rituals are constructed. And it kind of supports the case that not everything in it is made out of concrete, because the rest of the Giza Plateau, they're quite clearly using stone very deliberately. In the Osiris shaft, you have single block carved stones from sort of Dynasty 0 that don't exist in that size anywhere in Africa. So they've brought a specific type of stone from outside, not just Egypt, but outside Africa, to carve into the shape of this quote unquote sarcophagus and stick down underneath the ground. So the stone was their paint. And there are dozens of pieces across the Giza kind of, well, actually all of the Old Kingdom project, but in Giza in particular, you have these sort of translucent or alabaster walls that would have looked amazing with the light behind them. And you have, as John Anthony West points out, the kind of redundant curved corners in some of the valley temples, which would be there for sonic reasons. Like if this was designed to be quote unquote activated or used sound in some sort of ritual way, well, then it starts to make sense. Like, why would you go to the engineering effort of curving the corner if it wasn't for that? And we can just kind of sort of spy through the gloom the pieces of something much more sophisticated than we previously thought was there. I don't know what they are because we haven't been looking for them. And the reality is we'll never get it correct. But we kind of don't need to. Like the mainstream Egyptological version is 0% correct. If my book is 0.1% correct,
we're making
that's
progress.
a win. Exactly. I'm prepared to be patient.
What about the idea that the pyramid is what fucked up Mars?
No.
No.
Well, the timings are off. The pyramid it's not an ice age survival. The thinking behind it is. I think John Anthony West, where we depart is he's mistaken some astronomical numbers for real numbers. And it's kind of confusing because the Egyptians thought their civilization came from the stars and their notion of kingship. So when you get back into their sort of before time, same as the Sumerians, they're measuring in very astrological numbers. The sort of 36,000, the 72, all these are, you get your precessional numbers or your Sothic cycle numbers. So the pyramid is significantly older than Khufu's reign, but it's not that much older. So it's sort of like pre-dynastic to Dynasty 0. But that makes sense. That would be, if you kind of push it back to there and you realize that's the best example of the engineering for the sort of Old Kingdom project, then it falls into what Robert Temple calls a logic of decline, because this one was quite important. They did this one right. You sort of see other ones and go, especially by the time you get to the final sort of dynasties of the Old Kingdom, they are unimpressive objects.
What about the acoustics in the King's Chamber then? Like when I was reading your book, I was thinking about it being like a modern day float tank, like a sensory deprivation chamber in a way. Like maybe that's what they used to
like fucking lot of work first.
Go to no, because like if they're obsessed with the afterlife and if that induces an OBE, like an out of body experience, that could be where they why they traveled.
That's exactly. That's pretty much spot on what I think. Again, if you look at where you put the pieces of Egypt together and go, well, from Dynasty Zero, we see a lot of the shamanic components which survived into some of the royal festivals, like the Heb-Sed festival, which means they were getting off their face on drugs. I've got a few New Kingdom medicals which have really alarming medical advice in them, like something, they think it's thrush that you sort of cure by putting like onion in vagina, and this doesn't sound pleasant. But the rest of it is filled with things like blue lotus and opium, and famously Tutankhamun had American drugs in him, like, coca, and, well, actually marijuana had been around in India from before that. So you have a civilization or a culture that has loads of drugs, is really, really good, pardon the pun, at stones, is obsessed with the stars and builds this kind of precision stone guitar you can stand in, or some kind of chamber, and chambers within them as well. And you start, again, it's one of those things where you can spy between these pieces what they were doing, and whatever kind of afterlife journey. I mean, as a magician, I don't have, like, I'm not saying they're wrong about this. I would not be surprised if, like, I kind of wish it still worked and we could all go in there and see what happens.
Yeah.
But if you put all these pieces together, then the rest of the kind of anomalies start to make sense. So, like, why is what they thought were the workers' villages are now kind of accommodation? Like, it's a hotel for highborn visitors from the Near East or what have you. You go, hang on a minute. Well, because travel is quite dangerous. So if I'm a Hittite, or what the Hittites became, so if I'm in like Anatolia, I'm not going to go and rubberneck some, tyrant's pointy tomb on the other side of the world. That's quite dangerous. I will, however, go and visit a sacred site that is a combination of a map of the other world and the other world, and I will participate in the rituals there to secure my own immortality. That's something to get out of bed for. And that's where I think we need to start heading in that direction, because the Giza complex, one, kind of interrelates with a whole bunch of golden ratio numbers and so on. So from a magical perspective, this is a ritual landscape designed to do one thing, which is secure an afterlife that is in some way associated with the stars for whatever reason. And so when we start to look at that, then you can kind of line it up against Paleolithic cultures and so on, and you see this sort of through line of, frankly, Western magic.
Wow, that's fascinating. It's like a shamanic amusement park in some way. So is that where Western magic started then? Does it parallel the creation of the pyramid in some way, or?
Well, the thesis of the book is that a lot of the kind of stories that inform Western spirituality in general, like the flood and the kind of fight between two brothers and all that kind of stuff that appears in the Bible and thus sort of appears in our culture, is significantly older. And I rely on the research of a Harvard Indologist by the name of Dr. Witzel for a lot of that information. And he wrote this amazing book, The Origins of the World's Mythologies. And it's a kind of book you can only write at the end of your career. Like, he's quite old now. And he spent, 50, maybe more years looking at the myths of the world. And there's that kind of peer pressure that you get in academia that you're not allowed to say things connect to other things. Because we tried that about 100 years ago, and it got quite racist quite quickly. And that was sort of its design. So we sort of decided, okay, now everyone invented everything independently. Let's all play nicely. So we sort of threw some babies out with the bathwater, because some things are similar to other things, and we can say that without being racist, hopefully. And so you kind of have a shape to the Western esoteric tradition that goes back to the Paleolithic. But interestingly, some of the spirits in the grimoires have been very confidently traced by another writer called Jake Stratton Kent back to the sort of late classical era, Alexandria, and on one side Greece, going back to the Archaic period, where it was you kind of have a necromantic tradition that was probably exclusively female, that dealt with the spirits of the dead and the restless dead, but Greece itself inherited that back. So the kind of trigger for writing this book from a magical perspective was the last 10 years, magical discourse has gotten quite good at kind of getting its history right to a point. And that point was late classical Alexandria on one side and then kind of archaic Greece on the other. But in both cases, especially when I've been thinking in longer timelines for 20 years, in both cases, it's just not old enough for me. It's, it's not even 1000 BC. Like it's a bit more than that. You go, that's, what happened in the 69,000 other years in between Africa and archaic Greece. Mm-hmm. And that book is kind of the story of me looking for that. And what was interesting is so many of the prominent spirits and practices and kind of ways of approaching the spirit world, we unquestionably got them from Alexandria and Greece and sort of up through the Dark Ages and folk magic. But it's the question of where Alexandria and archaic Greece got them from. And you kind of plug them together and you go, hang on a minute, I can legitimately make the case that one of the more popular grimoire spirits, Astaroth, which is patently Astarte, which is one of the female names of God, that obviously becomes a demon when all that kind of stuff. Everyone knows that kind of story. But if you trace Astarte back to Inanna, which is fairly common, so you get back to Sumeria very quickly. So there's a spirit in books that are being sort of sold in Paris in the 1780s that have a spirit in them that is actually the Sumerian goddess Inanna. Fine. Where did Inanna come from? Yeah. And that's my book. And you go, well, hang on. You can actually match that and suddenly realize that the journey to, say, the Grimoire Umberum or even later grimoires isn't a 1,800-year-old journey. It's a 30,000-year-old journey. And that necessarily, I think, changes the context in which magicians today approach working with grimoire spirits, because all of a sudden we kind of have they have a bigger family tree than we expected.
Wow. Can you go into that a bit deeper and working with that?
As in, well, hang on. Which bit?
How it changes how you would work with magic, knowing that the family tree goes back another, thousands and thousands of years.
Well, I don't think it changes anything on a
functional way.
Yeah, not on a functional basis. It just you just approach them differently. There's a fascinating thing. Talking to my publishers about this when we were talking about the book. Where in the practice of magic, particularly if it's spirit magic stuff, and I have grown up in areas that have been involved with this kind of thing, where it does feel old because it is old, like, Aboriginal Australia and so on. Even if you're doing something that's quite contemporary, that you can actually sort of pinpoint its origin in like the 80s or 1910, it feels very old when you do it. So there's a difference in the kind of mouthfeel of the practice of magic and what you know of its history. And that was, if anything, that was the question mark that I needed to turn into, I don't know, an exclamation by writing the book, because you start to realize which kind of like boundaries between traditions can be blurred and which ones can't. You can take things back to classical Greece, and that gives you a certain kind of set of protocols for dealing with the spirits of the dead. However, when you work out that those protocols came from Eurasia 10, 12,000 years ago, and it was those same Eurasian cultures that ended up becoming Vedic culture and Hinduism on one side, and you kind of go from the middle of Eurasia down and in each direction to get different things, you start to realize that there are contexts to do with either meditation or drumming or chanting that aren't in the grimoires, but were there for a goodly portion of the Astaroth story. She wouldn't have been called Astaroth 12,000 years ago, but nevertheless, someone would have called that spirit in that way, which clearly isn't in the grimoires, because in the grimoires you sort of dress up like Moses and bully people around. It's not a very practical system for the 21st century, and potentially that's one of the reasons for looking elsewhere.
Can you talk a bit more about your personal spiritual practice?
Not really.
No. What about just the sigil magic in general?
Oh, sure. Well, that ended up being the kind of the breakout first album on the blog. I think it's been read a couple of million times now. But essentially, sigil magic is this. Well, in theory, sigil magic goes back to this sort of 250,000-year-old first instance of humans in southern Africa, where you kind of seeing just little lines painted in red ochre on rock or bone, or sequences of carvings in bone, because that's what's called symbolic thinking. It's the first evidence we have of humans having something represent something else. And that's that kind of great act of magic. The first piece of magic is to realize that your consciousness is involved in making meaning in the world. So sigil magic is commonly practiced by chaos magicians, is by and large the kind of development of a London-based artist in the early 20th century called Austin Nusman Spare. And most people know about it, but you kind of write out your intent and you cross out vowels and multiple letters and you turn that into something that looks, and I quote, magic-y. Mine ended up looking quite sort of Pacific tribal kind of thing. It's a visual style. You get used to, there's literally no wrong way to do it. I know everyone thinks there is, and they found it, but there genuinely isn't. And kind of the innovation that I humbly may say I contributed to the discourse was what I'm calling shoaling, which is kind of using them in sort of activating multiple sigils at once with a sigil for something that has either already happened or is going to happen. So if you know you're having spaghetti for dinner, you write spaghetti for dinner as a sigil and you put it in there with all the other stuff you actually want. And you have 5 or 6 of them. And it's called a robofish. And it's sort of based on the idea. There was some tests done with robot stickleback fish at, I think it was the University of Manchester. And you put the robot fish in amongst the school of sticklebacks and they didn't do anything. And you sort of moved it slowly and they didn't do anything. But if it made decisive movements, the fish would school around it and follow it left and right and so on. And it was just sort of following. So, because the assumption is the fish goes, oh, that guy knows something. And it's either danger or food, and they follow it. And I kind of use that as the metaphor because I was trying to solve on a magical basis a time problem with sigils. When you deal with spirit magic, you can kind of ask for something or not demand something, but you can enter into a spirit agreement where you say, I need this thing to happen by now. And if it does, you get this. It's a contract, right? And so if it doesn't happen, the other side doesn't get their thing. There's none of that in sigil magic because humans are technically spirits themselves, but you're kind of dealing with your own consciousness and unconscious. And it's a bit more freeform and people think it's safer. It's not. Magic can still mess up your life. Right. So I was trying to shorten this kind of Amazon delivery time. I'm like, why is it I can't get anything to show up in less than 2 weeks? And so I'm like, okay, well, if I put one in there that is time-based for this evening, maybe that'll do it. And it didn't. The time thing seems to be out of your control because magic is probability enhancement. So it kind of depends on the rest of the universe and what you do to have those probabilities kind of eventuate. But what it did do is improve the success rate. And I think this is such dumb science, quote unquote, but it's magic, so it doesn't need to be. But I think there's something about sending those messages like letters to Santa to your unconscious. If you send one in for something that has happened or is going to happen, it kind of means your unconscious can put it in the correct pile. It's like, oh, these are things that happen. So spaghetti for dinner goes in with, well, not necessarily winning the lottery, but getting the promotion and what have you. So it gets all these messages in its pneumatic tube. And one of them, and that seems to be it, like it kind of anchors the intentions to physical reality. And no one had really done that. And if you just Google sigil magic rune soup, anyone who's listening, you'll get the whole thing. And yeah, that shit works.
And it started working better. It started working better.
Yeah. Much better.
It's almost like that sort of new agey thing about intention and the law of attraction, like act as if you've already got it, kind of thing. Like that it's not you're not asking for it or begging for it, but you're moving into a vibration of it's already there.
The act as if you've already got it. I mean, Crowley wrote about that, particularly to do with wealth magic. That is a lot more. That's actually a lot more challenging and a lot more sophisticated in terms of magic than it sounds, just because you have people on OOPA talking about it, which is why it doesn't work for most people, because that's like an A-game thing. And I wasn't there. I was C grade, C grade at best. So you're right. It is like that, but a kind of shoaling method with the sort of RoboFish sigil works better because potentially the trouble with acting as if you've already got something, it still keeps the intention at front of mind in consciousness, where you're kind of aware that you don't have it. Austin Spare's idea, I mean, we've kind of moved on with our sort of models of consciousness, but in the early 20th century, he thought that the unconscious was where everything manifested in your life. Mm-hmm. So, and the conscious mind was the kind of, bus driver, and it didn't manifest anything. It didn't, and that's also why, I mean, because he was an artist, so he was aware that in that kind of early psychotherapy sense that you had to kind of deal with your shadows as well, because otherwise they'll manifest in your life as challenges. And funnily enough, that's now considered more or less science, even though it's a guess. But this is the same idea, which is if you are job seeking and you try to just act as if you already have a job, that's quite difficult to do because your conscious mind is aware of the lack. Your conscious mind is aware that the reason you're acting this way is because you don't have it. Yeah. The theory is the unconscious mind doesn't know the goddamn difference. So it gets in its pneumatic tube, you have a job as a sigil message. And they go, oh, fair enough. That's what happens. And it's kind of like, I don't know, like the bathhouse in Spirited Away, and it just kind of pulls on things and it manifests in the universe. Sigil magic is quite fun in that way because it is comparatively benign as long as you don't use it for... I don't have a problem with like Malefica or cursing or anything. I don't really have cause to do it. I haven't used it in 20 years. But for the love of God, don't use sigil magic for cursing because you're essentially sending really nasty messages into your own unconscious, which is sort of like swallowing the bomb. Like it's dumb. Yeah. So it's actually quite a good thing for people to play around with because you pick benign and sometimes fun things, like, because it's actually quite difficult to think of 6 things you want at the one time. So you end up with like always get a seat on a bus, or I want to see more celebrities just in day-to-day life, just, useless stuff. I mean, this is something when Grant Morrison sort of started playing with it in the 90s, he said, this is actually quite fun. Like, I want to see more attractive women in red tops. And that was a sigil. And it worked. Like, it's frivolous, but it's frivolous in a good way because it makes your universe bigger each time you do it. You start to realize, well, there's something about me that co-creates reality. Yeah, and that's a really nice thing to know rather than to think.
I wanted to ask you about it because I heard somebody talking on a podcast about it. It must have been 4 or 5 years ago. And I was stuck in this situation, stuck in this rut. So I actually tried it. And that's kind of what propelled me on this path now. Like that actually set a whole series of events in place to change my life. So it was quite powerful. I haven't really looked into it much since then, but it's nice to hear your take on it.
Well, yeah, that's, it's very pleasant to hear it. It's surprising just how many people have actually had positive magical experiences in their life. It can be something like, oh yeah, well, my aunt came and visited me after she died, and I had this dream. What do you think of that? And I'm like, what do you think I think of that? I think your aunt came to visit you, you after she died. I'm a magician. This is, we're not on, this isn't some kind of Stephen Fry program, but it's surprising how many people, because it is a normal functioning of human consciousness. That's effectively what magic is. Magic is a culture-specific description of how to describe this, a culture-specific description of natural human consciousness capabilities. So our psi effects like telepathy and so on. If you actually break down the different quote-unquote schools of magic around the world, they're basically the same operatively. If you could go to the Amazon and find a shaman, you can go and find a witch in some Emilia-Romagna village in Italy. It doesn't matter where you go. There's essentially a couple of things. It's sort of seeing the future, trafficking with spirits, and basically getting rid of the evil eye. But in all these cases, they kind of match some of the things that Dr. Sheldrake has been looking at in a scientific sense, which is, will people recover faster from surgery if other people are praying for them, even if they're unaware that the prayers are happening? And obviously, telepathy and the rest of it. So, and I think when you talk about remote viewing, however that works would have been described as a spirit world or traveling in the spirit world. So we kind of have the kind of X-Men powers underneath magic. There's really only 3 or 4 of them, and they manifest in myriad cultures in a different way. And how they manifest in the West, or have historically manifested, is via this kind of grimoire tradition, which scares people because many of them are just lists of demons. But the demon word is a bit unfair, which is why I use spirit, because taking Astaroth as an example, she used to be the counterpart to the Christian God until, he got a divorce. And before that was the preeminent goddess of one of our earliest civilizations. So it's a bit unfair to call her a demon now because the politics have changed. But that's it. So we have these lists of beings who've kind of been companions. But if you look at the kind of spells, quote unquote, in the grimoires, they're the same. They're like getting rid of the evil eye, cursing someone who stole your pig. They're more or less the same kind of questions or conditions that someone would consult an Amazonian shaman for. That suggests to me very strongly that there is a deep structure to it, and Starships is my examination of how that deep structure formed into the recognizable shape that we see it today.
Do you practice any magic that you can do curses?
Oh, sure. I just
would you consider
notified of me?
Would you consider cursing Graham for me, just to as an experiment?
No.
Thanks.
He seems nice.
Meanwhile, he's muted me. Thanks, Darren.
Well, you were fiddling with your mic stand.
Oh, was he? No, we can talk for the show.
Yeah, no, there's no cursing here, Darren.
Just for scientific purposes.
No. See what he puts me. Just because I like to experiment with, the stuff that the guests talk about, that doesn't mean that I'm willing to do that.
Take a curse.
You're the one with magical experience. So if you guys get into a wizard fight, think about it. One of you's got experience, the other one doesn't.
That's it. But I got mushrooms. What do you think about the idea or the theories of simulated digital universes and stuff like that? Does your world outlook kind of allow for that sort of thing?
My world's surprisingly open to anything. There's something about chaos magic in particular that makes you wildly unattached to any particular belief. If you wake up one day and it turns out that's wrong, or that's how that works, and it's not magic, or it's not spirits, or if in the extremely unlikely situation that materialism is correct and some of these silly nonsense ideas about how telepathy works turn out to be the case, and you go, fair enough, on with my day. I think in the case of a simulated universe, there's something to that. I think that's a modern description of a kind of very Gnostic awareness that, one, this isn't our long-term home, and two, something's up. Something's not right about how this is put together. On a mathematical basis, we use the word computer programs for some very good reasons, like the problems with the redshift at the sort of edge of the universe, and the fact that the Big Bang is probably completely wrong, invented by a priest rather than an actual scientist, incidentally. So people are kind of looking to model how the Big Bang might work in that kind of thought experiment way, which is, well, if it's a computer program, you don't need to render the entire background, just the bits that are in high definition. It's just the bits that are in use. And that goes some way to explaining some of the weird shit you're seeing at the sort of edge of telescope view. There's something to that, but it doesn't necessarily need to be a computer program. It could be, I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the sort of idea of biocentrism, which is sort of like an idealist or consciousness-based view of the universe, except it's created by anything that's alive, so that so a slug has a little universe and so on. We could actually be seeing the edge of that as an example.
So that's kind of the same idea, but instead of the computer having to write the code to keep extending the universe the farther we can look, it's actually not the computer, it's actually reality itself manifesting because our consciousness is viewing it.
Yeah, well,
it's like the observer effect on some fucking grand scale.
Exactly. I mean, the computer thing is a metaphor. The hologram thing is a thought experiment, and quite a good one, that looks at that looks like the Gnostic creation story. It's just that, you know, in the 3rd and 4th centuries, they didn't have computers, so they didn't use that term. But the thought experiment is that we're an nth degree hologram is quite a good way of thinking about how creation works, or quite a useful way, if not accurate. And the nth degree hologram is that so one day we build, and we're sort of doing it in theory, although I have my suspicions, we build a virtual reality world that is much more interesting and more detailed, or as detailed as the physical one, and we spend more and more time in there, to the point that we build a virtual reality world in our virtual reality world because we've largely forgotten. And also that's the piece that's missing in our virtual world, is virtual worlds. So we build one there, and so suddenly our virtual character is now playing in a virtual world, and that recurs to the nth degree. And that's kind of one of the more fun kind of bong-ripping thought experiments when you're thinking about how a holographic universe might work, or how it is that we exist in a particular way. It's a good idea. It's a good thing to sort of think through. And that sort of broadly matches the Yaldabaoth story of creation and then forgetting that he created it. So, you have the supreme God, the actual good God, creates Sophia, and she sort of gives birth to this thing called Yaldabaoth, who creates the physical world, and kind of forgets that there are the things above him, and says that you shall have no other gods but me. So Yaldabaoth, you can tell who they were talking about. The Gnostics didn't much care for the Christians and the non-Gnostic Jews at the time. It's obviously kind of like a cipher for Yahweh, and they even give him his words. But it's the same idea that you build this thing and you forget that it's not actually it's not the full story, because the description is, when he said this, he sinned against the entirety. So he was actually unaware that he was sinning. So the holographic model matches. It's not a new idea. The Gnostics were thinking like this. They were thinking, how does this work? How is it built? And kind of thinking through very, very similar ideas. They just didn't have holograms and computers to use as their metaphors. So they have these big, exciting sort of Near Eastern gods and demons instead.
You mentioned synchronicities on your website. Before we wrap this up, do you have any personal ones that stand out for you that you want to tell us? We talk about them quite a bit here. And it's funny how
it's tough, loads. Once you start getting, I think synchronicities are, I think the word has some problems in the sense that it's essentially magic. Like, people use the word synchronicity and consider themselves materialists, which is not correct. Like, okay, how did that work? So how did I see a string of words that matched the sentence of the person I was thinking about when they called me in the car? Like, you go, oh, a bit of a synchronicity. You go, well, no, fine. How does that work? And so I'm very interested in them, because I think the word has lost some of its utility because it's been over people sort of playing bingo with whatever Nicki Minaj is wearing across the internet as some sort of sync thing, and it's destroying the usefulness that Jung gave it, and he gave it a full-blown wizardly interpretation. I mean, if you read the Red Book, he was a full-blown wizard. There's no other way to describe Jung. Mm-hmm. So you get dozens of them, and it's that kind of thing of the universe noticing you, noticing it. The more you start to lean into it, the more of them you see, and then the more of them you see, they start to become a thing you can kind of navigate by. And if anyone's interested in kind of boosting their syncs, then that's a very good thing to sort of start sigilizing for as a beginning thing. Increase in synchronicities, because the results manifest via synchronicity anyway. So you can kind of kick that up a notch by putting sigils together that say increase in synchronicities and so on.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Good way to do it. So is there anything, we've been on for a while here, Gordon, is there anything you think we should, you want to talk about your new book or anything else before we start wrapping it up?
What did we? No, we covered the Ice Age. We covered Egypt. We kind of missed off we spoke about NASA and Mars, but we kind of missed off the sort of spirit interpretation. But that's cool. Then we spoke about spirits. No, I think I'm good. I think we had a good old chat.
Right on. Yeah, it was a blast. It was great. And yeah, we recommend.
Time always seems to fly by.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Yeah, I recommend your book. We'll put the links in the show notes and all that. And are you any plans to put it on audio at all?
It's a good question. I was actually just talking to the publishers about it. At the moment, no, but probably the next one. I've got another book coming out in April. That one may get to audio first, but that's a specific kind of like success magic strategies book. It's not a history and mythology and sort of Egypt and alien book, which Starships is.
Okay, cool. Well,
nice one. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, and good luck with that book as well.
Yeah. Let us know when it comes out, and we can we'll have you back. It seems like we could fill another 2 hours pretty quick.
Anytime. Always a pleasure.
Right on. Thanks a lot, Gordon.
Okay, see you.
Okay, bye-bye.
That was our chat with Gordon. That was a good one, eh? Fucking flew by.
Yeah.
The good ones always fly by.
The fastest 2 hours of my life. Yeah, he could talk about all kinds of stuff. I was really excited about that after reading his book and listening to some interviews on it. He did this presentation in October that we didn't talk about the archaeology of dragons, and it was fascinating about where dragons have come from in culture and the history, and really cool stuff.
Nice.
Do you believe in dragons?
I've slayed a few dragons in my day.
Okay, St. George.
Anyhow.
What'd you think? Yeah, you like it?
Yeah, that's great stuff.
You going to practice some synchronicity sigil magic?
Probably not.
You should try.
No, I don't like to dabble in
the dark arts. It's not dark.
No?
It doesn't have to be.
No. It inevitably turns out to be.
No, it doesn't.
If I learn magic, I'm going to curse you.
Oh, come on, buddy.
You can rake me and I'll curse you. Anyway, big thanks to Gordon for coming on the show. I'm looking forward to maybe we can have him back again when his new book comes out. Go for another couple hours.
Yeah, check out runesoup.com. It's full of awesome blogs, really good stuff. All kinds of categories. I don't know how he does it. Puts it all together.
Yeah, he's funny. He's got a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, guys, check out grimerica.ca/support as always for all the different ways to help out the show. One-time donations, monthly subscriptions, stories, spam. We've got the t-shirts there for donations of $25 and more. We've got the magnets in now. I think we're going to do those for donations of $5 or more or new subscribers. Probably if you're an old subscriber and you want one, we could probably work something out. We'll figure it out. We're new at this. Everything we do is the first time we've ever done it. So
pretty much, eh?
There's always some fucking speed bumps. But check that out. Yeah, anything else? Sign up for the newsletter, grimerica.ca/news. Review the show wherever you can. Share the show wherever you can. Tell your friends about this motherfucker. You could do that easily with a magnet on your bumper.
Spamgram.
Spam.
Did you say that already? GRAHAM at Grimerica.com.
Or CA. I think CA forward.
Yeah, I would like hearing from you. And if you don't hear back, I'm sorry about that. But we do try and respond to everybody. And
They help us fill the intros.
Stories, experiences, trip reports, synchronicities, UFO sightings, all that stuff.
If you are listening to this on some other format, because it seems like there's probably people listening where we don't know, just remember you can always find everything Grimerica at the website, grimerica.ca.
Yeah, and there's lots of links in the show notes for all that stuff.
Tons of great bloggers. Check out some of the bloggers there. We've got a load of good bloggers now. Sign up or shoot me an email if you want to be a blogger. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for listening, guys.
Right on, buddy.
We will see you next week.
For me and you, we have like coast to coast, but on demand. Raw and uncut interviews, and all without no ads. One says false and one says true, and the rate you sing grows too. Grimerica is here for you. Stories from the listeners, they sent to Graham. He'll read them and be amazed, but Darren may say no. One says red and one says blue, but if it's balls it just won't do. Grimerica